Hey guys, tonight we begin the Greek myth timeline. In the quiet of night, when the world has softened into whispers, let's travel far, not just across time, but into a memory older than memory itself. A time before gods and mortals, before oceans had names, when the world was still learning how to breathe. Imagine yourself lying on a soft hillside beneath a sky with no stars yet, only shades of deep blue, stretching forever. A calm wind moves across that emptiness, almost like the world exhaling for the first time. In the silence, chaos floated, not disorder, but stillness. It was not loud or wild, but a soft hum, a cradle of possibility. From that hush came Gaia the earth, warm, patient, reaching upward like a steady heartbeat. Slowly, oceans glimmered where there had been none. Stars blinked awake, one by one, like sleepy eyes opening in the dark, and time itself began to stretch and yawn. Somewhere far above Uranus, the sky unfolded, and when he met Gaia, the earth, there was calm companionship, like two old souls recognizing one another after a long silence. Together, they began to dream of life. Down below, rivers began to wander peacefully toward seas, not yet named. Mountains rolled up like gentle folds, and mists climbed their slopes in slow spirals, as if the whole world were taking its first quiet breath. And then, one by one, ancient figures stepped into the silence, softly, slowly, as if afraid to disturb it. The first gods, the first beings. They spoke not with words, but with the language of the wind, the sea, and the night. From dark Erebus came the gentle shadow, from Nyx, the velvet night, from ether, the sigh of dawn. Together, they painted the world in colors of sleep and memory. You can almost hear it if you listen. Soft waves against unseen shores, wind brushing newborn trees, a rhythm older than language itself. So tonight, as you sink deeper into your pillow, let the myths of Greece gather around you, not as stories to be analyzed, but as gentle lullabies whispered by an ancient world to the present one. Each name, each place, each cosmic event is just one ripple in an endless, peaceful ocean of time, and you are floating among them, weightless, timeless, at ease. The myths to come of gods, heroes, and dreams will unfold as softly as night turns to dawn. Nothing will hurry here. Every tale will arrive like a wave on a quiet shore. If your mind wanders as you listen, that's okay. Just let it drift back through clouds, across oceans, into the embrace of stories that have watched humanity sleep for thousands of years. And soon, we'll begin the long journey through time, from creation to gods, from kings to heroes, from the first sunrise to the quiet end of Olympus. But before we start, just breathe and feel the weight of history resting softly against your heart. Because every myth begins in the same place, a story told in the quiet, on a night very much like this one. So close your eyes. Let's wander back to where it all began, in a world still young and full of gentle dreams. But before we dive in, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It's a small gesture that truly helps the channel grow. And I'm always curious to know where in the world you're listening from, and at what time of night. The beginning was not thunder nor flame, but silence. A silence so deep that even time, if it existed then, hesitated to begin. Out of that stillness, chaos was not a roar, but a gentle pause, the quiet before a whisper. Imagine floating in that space, where there is no horizon, only a soft darkness stretching in every direction like velvet. Slowly, something stirs within it, not movement, but the first thought, the first breath of creation. There, in the embrace of the void, the first beings appear. They are not gods yet, merely ideas wearing shape. Gaia, the earth, awakens like warmth spreading beneath bare feet. Erebus, the quiet gloom, folds himself into the shadows. Nyx, the night, unrolls her dark fabric across the endless deep, brushing it smooth as if tucking the newborn universe to sleep. Gaia lies at the heart of everything, patient and still, dreaming of hills and rivers that do not yet exist. From her dream, faint colors shimmer, smudges of green, soft brown, pale blue, like memories sent forward through time. Above her, a sky takes shape, Uranus, vast and kind, unfolding himself like a curtain of stars. He gazes upon Gaia with quiet devotion, and together they begin a rhythm, a pulse that will echo forever, the first heartbeat of creation. The air hums faintly, rich with the promise of form and sound. From the deep corners of chaos, the hidden places whisper new names. Ether, the bright upper air. Hemera, light of day, who walks softly behind Nyx at dawn. They pass one another each morning. Nyx fading into Hemera, Hemera sinking into Nyx, like a gentle exchange of sighs between night and day. No rush, no conflict, only continuity, a round eternal motion. As the land thickens under Gaia's dreaming, rivers begin to hum quietly through unseen valleys. Winds curl and weave through her breath, shaping the idea of mountains to come. There is no sound of battle here, no divine storm, only the hush of a world assembling itself, piece by piece, in a lullaby rhythm. The stars blink awake for the first time, tiny, hesitant lights scattered above like scattered seeds. One might imagine distant bells, soft, far away, ringing each time a new constellation opens its eyes. The Titans, though not yet born, already exist as dreams in Gaia's warm soil, future mountains, rivers, and skies sleeping in the folds of her heart. The world is both empty and full, still and alive. The air smells of clay and rain that has yet to fall. Above, Uranus spreads wide, watching over Gaia's slow dreams. Their harmony is the first story, the unspoken promise that from silence, beauty can emerge, not all at once, but gently, like the unfolding of a petal. And as night deepens, the newborn universe grows heavy with calm. The stars shimmer faintly, waves lap somewhere unseen, and the first hint of morning light breathes across creation's edge. It is not the beginning of a tale shouted through thunder, but one whispered through sleep, a slow dawn in the heart of eternity, where time has only just begun to dream. There was a stillness that hung over the young universe, deep and whole, filled with a kind of patience only eternity could hold. From the soft embrace of chaos had emerged Gaia, the earth, resting like a vast heartbeat beneath the hush of endless sky. Though the stars had only just opened their eyes, they already seemed tired, shimmering faintly in quiet contentment. The air was calm, wrapped in the hush of creation. Nothing hurried, nothing disturbed the rhythm. Gaia's skin was still warm clay, breathing with the heat of birth, yet everything she touched began to take form. Where her thoughts drifted, hills rose, gentle mounds brushed with pale moss. Where her dreams deepened, ocean basins yawned open, dark and still as sleeping mirrors. Her thoughts were not like human minds. They were slow, vast movements of being, carried by the rhythm of existence itself. She was not building the world, she was becoming it. Her breath became mist. Her pulse whispered rivers. Her silence seeded mountains. Above her, another presence began to awaken, Uranus, the sky, born out of that same still void. He unfolded not with thunder or flame, but like an early dawn, layer upon layer of pale blue unfurling over Gaia's sleeping body. He didn't stand apart from her. He stretched over her softly, his glow mingling with her breath, his presence like a calm blanket of light over her dreaming hills. As their essences entwined, a kind of harmony took root that would echo through every grain of sand for eons to come. They did not speak in words. Instead, the earth sighed upward and the sky hummed downward until the two melodies became one, a wind rolling softly through the emptiness, the first lullaby of creation. From that breath came motion, from motion came warmth, and from warmth came life that had not yet learned to move. Gaia's fertile body became dotted with tiny sparks of color, the first flowers, blooming timidly under a still dim sun. At first, there were no seasons, only steady, endless twilight. The air glowed gently, neither day nor night, but a constant, peaceful glow that kept everything in a soft equilibrium. The rivers that wound across Gaia's slopes murmured in low tones, as though speaking to themselves. The waves along her first seas curled lazily and spread across golden shores that existed for no eye but hers. Uranus gazed down, covering her in a mantle of stars, and in this tender union of sky and earth, new lives began to stir. The Titans, the offspring of Gaia and Uranus, did not crawl or cry when born. They were vast ideas shaped as beings, growing slowly from the soil, their presence as immense as the hills and oceans themselves. Each titan represented something vast and eternal. Oceanus, who became the slow-moving sea that murmured forever. Hyperion, whose gaze glowed with the warmth of the first light. Thea, radiant as amber dawn. They emerged from Gaia's dreaming body quietly, as one by one the ideas of the world took human faces. They were not yet mortal in form, nor godly in perfection. They were archetypes of what would come, distant echoes of meaning taking shape under the first sky. Uranus loved Gaia deeply, yet his love was heavy with fear. The fear that nothing would remain his, that creation might move without him. He wrapped himself tightly around her, not to shelter, but to contain. And Gaia, patient as stone, endured it. She felt her children stirring beneath her, but confined by the vast weight of the heavens above. They could whisper and breathe, but not roam. The world was full and still, burdened by peace that longed to move. And so, time began to coil. Epochs gathered upon one another like sediment. There was no counting, but the rhythm deepened, the silence matured. From within Gaia's depths, her eldest children began to speak, not in language, but through pressure and pulse, as rivers seeking their path. The earth itself wanted to move, to breathe freely beneath the wide sky. Gaia's heart, though patient, began to ache. From that ache was born a single thought, a spark drifting upward through roots and caverns, until it reached the ancient mind of one among her unborn offspring, Kronos, the youngest Titan. In Gaia's hidden whispers he found a purpose, not rebellion, but the yearning for balance. The story of the gods, the myths that mortals would someday dream by firelight, began here, in that subtle yearning. But for now, there was no war, only anticipation. A seed planted in silence, destined to bloom in myth. Above, Uranus glided endlessly across the curve of Gaia's body, his jeweled cloak spanning horizon to horizon. Sometimes his stars dimmed when her mountains rose higher, as though losing touch. Sometimes the wind carried faint laughter, the groan of volcanoes, the sigh of earthquakes, all Gaia's slow emotions echoing through her vast frame. Nothing rushed. Change drifted like pollen on the first wind. Each dawn came a little brighter than the last, and each night fell a shade deeper, as the world learned the rhythm between stillness and time. The younger deities, Eros, the first gentle longing, Pontus, the sea's first depth, Hemera, the day, drifted through creation like warm breezes. They were Gaia's grandchildren in spirit, subtle forces, wearing the shape of feeling. Eros stirred the first affection between sky and land, between sun and ocean. Wherever he passed, things began to reach out. Buds unfolded, waves leaned toward the shore, light curved upon the water. Love, even then, was not passion or flame. It was movement, the quiet refusal to stay still. In these slow days, there were no temples, no worshippers, no fears of death or loss. Only the vast serenity of existence, understanding itself. The world spoke softly in color, dusky greens, muted golds, faint washes of blue. Night spilled quietly into dawn, and dawn melted back into night. Somewhere over far hills, the first storm clouds began to form, not of anger, but of music, rain falling softly over newborn rivers. Gaia listened to the rhythm of droplets striking stone, and thought how beautiful it was that even the smallest sounds could make the universe feel alive. Her sigh became the first thunder's echo, rolling far across unseen plains. Uranus replied with starlight, filling the darkness with tiny flares of warmth. Beneath them, the Titans dreamed of wide, fertile valleys and infinite oceans, of skies unbroken, of destiny not yet written. And thus passed the age that mortals would never see but always remember, the age when the earth and sky were still one harmonious song. The whisper of chaos had become a melody. Gaia's womb had become landscape. Uranus's breath had become time. They did not yet know heartache, not yet discord, only the faint murmuring promise that creation, by its nature, must continue and change. As nights turned into eternities, Uranus held Gaia close, as he had since dawn, unaware that the roots of separation had already sprouted in the quiet heart of the world. The Titans dreamed, and those dreams pulsed upward through stone and wind. The Earth did not sleep anymore, it waited, and in the vast hush between those sleeping stars, the universe seemed to rest its head beside them, content for a while in this beginning of all things, where earth and sky lay together, endless and still, under the slow whisper of creation continuing to hum. The world had settled into a calm rhythm by the time the Titans came fully into themselves, like a long, slow breath finally exhaled. Gaia, the earth, lay vast and steady, her surface now shaped by valleys and gentle slopes, by rivers that curled like silver threads, by seas that cradled the pale reflection of the young stars. Uranus, the sky, arched over her in a wide, protective dome, his cloak speckled with constellations that were still learning how to shine. Between them, in that quiet space where earth met sky, the Titans grew from possibilities into presences, from dreams into towering beings who watched the stillness and began to understand their place within it. The Titans were children of Gaia and Uranus, but they were also children of the world's first ideas. Oceanus stood at the distant edges, wrapped in deep blue, the embodiment of the endless waters that circled the newborn land. Hyperion carried the promise of the sun within his gaze, a glow waiting to spill over hills and seas. Ceus and Crius, thoughtful and still, lingered close to the outer reaches of the heavens, like minds contemplating the great emptiness beyond. Iapetus, quiet yet intense, watched the horizon with a sense of waiting, as if he could already sense the mortals who would someday walk the earth. Their sisters were no less grand. Theia shimmered with a radiant, pale beauty that resembled the first soft glints of light on water. Rhea, calm and nurturing, carried in her presence the idea of cycles, of births, of gentle returns. Themis held a stillness that felt like balance, an early echo of what mortals would one day call justice. Mnemosyne drifted through the air like a soft echo, the quiet spirit of memory and story. Phoebe glowed with a cool, thoughtful light, and Tethys moved with the quiet patience of deep waters, mirroring Oceanus in temperament and depth. Together, these 12 first-generation Titans seemed to embody everything the world would ever need: light and dark, land and sea, law and remembrance, power and tenderness. They did not yet rule in the way kings and queens would rule later. They simply existed, in a golden age before struggle, while the world was still young enough to be simple. In those days, the air itself felt thick with potential, like warm mist rising from the earth at dawn. The days were long, and the nights were gentle, and time slid past like a slow river that no one thought to measure. In this gentle era, the Titans walked slowly across Gaia's body, each footstep a quiet shaping of the land. Where Oceanus traced his fingers, shorelines curved and bays formed. Where Hyperion's attention fell, the first glimmers of sunlight sharpened into a steady glow. The world was not yet harsh, not yet fractured by storms of conflict. Instead, it evolved with the patience of stone, the unhurried flow of water. The Titans spoke in low voices that sounded almost like the wind moving over distant peaks, their words more like feelings than commands. They were not alone, of course. Beneath the surface of the earth, deeper even than the roots of mountains, lay Tartarus, the shadowed gulf. It was a dimension of its own, a deep, enclosed darkness, far beneath Gaia's comforting soil. Tartarus was not yet a prison in this age. It was simply another element of existence, like earthen caverns beneath a home, unvisited but present. It awaited the destinies that had not yet unfolded, a sleeping pit dreaming of futures not yet written. From Gaia and Uranus had also come other children, the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handers, the Hecatoncheires. They were powerful and strange, embodiments of raw strength and elemental might. Yet where the Titans bore the calm dignity of mountains and seas, these children carried something more unpredictable: the force of storms, the weight of earthquakes, the pure power that could shake foundations. Uranus, gazing upon them with unease, had hidden them away in the depths of Gaia, in the shadows of Tartarus, afraid of what they might become. Gaia felt the weight of her hidden children, like a quiet ache beneath her surface. The Titans sensed it too, though they did not yet understand. They felt tremors under their feet, soft groans in the stone, as though the earth were sighing in its sleep. But on the surface, everything seemed peaceful. The world lived in a time that later ages would call a golden age, the rule of the Titans, calm and steady, before the storms of succession would disturb the still water. In those days, mortals had not yet been shaped. There were no cities, no temples, no songs sung in the names of gods. The only music was the murmur of rivers, the soft hiss of waves curling and uncurling along empty shores, the whisper of the wind through young groves of trees. Mountains rose high, but not yet sharp, more like rounded shoulders resting against the sky. Clouds gathered and drifted, not as omens, but as soft blankets of shadow that moved lazily across the land. The Titans, for all their stature, were not hurried beings. Hyperion watched the path of the sun, guiding its gentle arc so that days would not be too hot, nor nights too long. With him were his children to come, the concepts of sun, moon, and dawn, still only faint lights glimmering in the future. Oceanus encircled everything with his broad waters, not crashing but sighing, his currents slow and deep. Tethys, beside him, carried the quiet promise of streams and springs that would someday nourish fields and forests. Rhea moved with the rhythm of cycles, sensing in her spirit the idea of birth and renewal. Everywhere she walked, the land seemed to breathe more fully. Flowers lifted their faces, grasses shimmered, and even the wind seemed to carry a softer tone. Themis and Mnemosyne often lingered together in quiet places, Themis feeling the balance of all things, Mnemosyne holding in her mind every moment of this earliest age, storing them like glimmers of light in a deep, still pool. Around them, the world settled into patterns. Days and nights took on more distinct shapes. The early light of dawn brushed the edges of hills with delicate gold, and twilight colored the sky with muted purples and soft grays. Stars, once shy and sparse, began to gather into familiar paths, weaving patterns that someday sailors and storytellers would follow. But here, in this era, those stars were for the Titans alone, companions watching silently from the high dome of Uranus. Though this was an age of calm, it was not completely free from unease. Beneath the earth, the Cyclopes and Hundred-Handers remained confined. Their immense strength, their many arms and single eyes, were seen by Uranus as threats, as disruptions to the gentle order he wanted to preserve. He pressed himself more closely over Gaia, seeking to keep everything beneath his control, pushing down the hidden children deeper into the dark. His fear of them, and of change itself, spread like a slight tension through the sky. Gaia felt that pressure as discomfort, as if the sky's embrace had turned from tenderness into heaviness. She loved Uranus, but she loved her children too, all of them. The Titans who walked the fields and the ones buried deep below. In the soft lulls between day and night, she thought about them. She imagined a world where every child of hers could stretch, move, and live freely beneath the open sky. That thought took root, slowly, winding its way through her soil like a secret root seeking light. The Titans noticed small changes. Kronos, the youngest of them, often stood apart, listening more closely than the others to the murmurs that rose through the earth. He was wily, as later poets would say, watchful and sharp. Where his elder siblings felt contentment, Kronos felt an edge of restlessness. He sensed Gaia's buried sorrow, the strain in her vast body as she carried both life and confinement. When he pressed his hand to the ground, he could almost feel the pounding of huge hearts locked away, the shifting of many hands that would never touch the sky. In the evenings, as the first constellations shimmered softly to life, Gaia whispered to Kronos, not in words, but in feelings. She shared her pain, her desire for balance, for a world where sky would not crush earth, and where no child of hers would be kept in perpetual shadow. The idea she planted within Kronos was not framed as hatred, but as correction. Yet, as all changes do, it carried the shadow of conflict along with it. Above, Uranus continued his slow passage across the heavens, his starry cloak trailing from horizon to horizon. To him, this age may have seemed perfect. He was in control, wrapped tightly around Gaia, with his less favored children hidden far away, unable to disturb the peace. But the universe, even in its earliest days, was not made for stillness alone. From the very moment chaos had given way to form, change had been woven into the foundation of existence. The Titans themselves were proof of that, each generation rising from the last, carrying new possibilities. The Golden Age under the Titans would later be remembered by mortals as a time without toil, a time when the earth freely gave its fruits, when people, once they existed, would not age or suffer as in later eras. In mythic memory, this age became a symbol of a world where effort was gentle and life was kind. Even though mortals did not yet walk in the fields, the essence of that age was already there, like sunlight stored in the soil, waiting to be released. The Titans presided over that quiet fullness, Oceanus encircling all with his waters, Themis sensing the balance that might be disturbed, Rhea intuiting that cycles must eventually turn, and in the center of it all, Kronos waited. The moments of stillness, the murmuring rivers, the gentle breezes, all carried hints of what was coming. Gaia's plan was taking shape, a scythe forged from unyielding stone and unbroken resolve, an instrument not only of separation but of change. She would place it in Kronos' capable hands, trusting that the youngest Titan, the one with sharp eyes and restless thoughts, would do what the others would not dare. For now, though, that scythe existed only as an idea, a glint of possibility in the shadows of the future. The age of the Titans, as the Greeks would later tell it, was the age before storms of war, before thunderbolts and burning cities, before heroes and monsters and tragic destinies. It was a time when gods were still learning, when the universe was slowly stretching its limbs and discovering where it felt strong and where it ached. The Titans were not villains, not yet. They were the elder gods, the first rulers, carrying the weight of a world that was still mostly silence and light. This age would not last forever. Already, in the quiet undercurrent of things, one could sense that the story was reaching slowly toward a turning point. Gaia's buried children stirred. Kronos listened. Uranus clung more tightly to the sky. But for now, just for now, the world remained wrapped in a warm, tranquil hush. Rivers flowed untroubled. Stars watched silently. The Titans walked the soft ground of a young cosmos, unaware that they themselves would soon become part of a story that would be told in whispers for thousands of years, a story of endings and beginnings, of old rulers and new, and of a child yet unborn who would rise from hidden caves to inherit the sky. The gentle age of the Titans continued to drift forward like a long, warm afternoon, but beneath its calm surface, something had begun to change. The sky still arched high and blue above the world, and the earth still rolled in soft hills and wide plains. But Gaia could feel the weight of time gathering. Uranus still pressed close, spread tightly over her like an unyielding ceiling of stars. And deep within her, the children he feared most lay hidden and confined, their enormous strength folded into cramped darkness. The Cyclopes and the 100-handers did not yet cry out, but their silent presence ached like a pressure that would not ease. Gaia carried them all, Titans on her surface, ancient powers in her depths, and even her patience, broad as it was, began to strain. Kronos, the youngest of the Titans, felt this strain more sharply than his siblings, while Oceanus circled the world in slow, thoughtful currents, and Hyperion guided the light of the sun in gentle arcs. Kronos listened. He listened to the soft tremors that rolled through the ground under his feet, to the faint knocking echoes from below, to the way Gaia sometimes seemed to sigh as if a burden weighed upon her bones. His mind was keen, sharper than the rounded edges of that peaceful age, and he noticed things others did not. The tension in the air when Uranus' starry mantle pressed too low, the way Gaia's quiet warmth sometimes flickered with discomfort. That restlessness sat in Kronos like a seed that would not stop stirring. Night after night, under the dim and timeless sky, Kronos would retreat to the edges of the world, to lonely ridges and cliff tops where the wind spoke more freely. There he would look up at the broad sweep of Uranus, at the countless stars shining like unblinking eyes, and feel a strange mixture of awe and resentment. The sky was beautiful, vast, and glimmering, but it was also heavy, wrapped around Gaia in a way that left little room for change. Kronos sensed that something in this arrangement was out of balance, like a song stuck on one long, unending note. Gaia, who felt his thoughts as clearly as she felt the shifting of tectonic plates, began to reach out to him more deliberately, not with words, not with commands, but with feelings slow, deep pulses moving upward through rock and soil, through roots and rivers, until they settled in Kronos' bones. She shared her discomfort at having her children buried away, the grief of hearing their immense hearts thud in the darkness, the sorrow of knowing that Uranus feared their existence so greatly he would rather lock them away than let them breathe the open air. She also shared her love for Uranus, for the Titans, for all her offspring, and her desire to see them all living in the light. What she longed for was not destruction, but freedom. Kronos, who had always been thoughtful, began to turn these feelings over in his mind like a stone in his hand. He could see the goodness in the age of the Titans, in the gentle cycles of day and night, in the calm seas and fertile fields. Yet he could not ignore what Gaia showed him, that this peace rested upon something hidden and strained. The future, it seemed, could not grow if the present never moved. Kronos began to understand that time, which he dimly felt within himself, did not stand still. It wanted to move forward, to unfold, to change. And if it did, then even the sky might have to shift. There came a time when Gaia's gentle pulses grew more focused, like a quiet voice learning to take form. She began to guide Kronos more clearly, shaping in his thoughts the image of an instrument, something that could cut and separate, something that could open a space where there was none. Slowly, with her help, Kronos imagined and then fashioned a great sickle of unyielding stone, curved and sharp, born from the hardest parts of Gaia herself. It was not a weapon in his mind, at least not at first. It was a tool, a means to create room where everything had been pressed too tightly together. The act of making it, of shaping its edge and learning its weight, moved him further away from the ease of the Golden Age and closer to the threshold of change. When Gaia was ready, she invited her children, the Titans, into the secret of her sorrow. She told them, through dreams and subtle visions, of their buried brothers, the Cyclopes and the Hundred Handers, locked away in the deep void of Tartarus. She showed them how Uranus had wrapped himself around the world so closely that nothing new could be born without being crushed or hidden. She asked if any among them would help her bring balance back, to ease the weight upon her body, and to give all her children a chance to exist freely. Most of the Titans, for all their size and strength, hesitated. Oceanus, who loved the steady flow of his great encircling waters, shrank from the thought of conflict. Themis, who sensed the fine balance of all things, feared disturbing it too violently. Hyperion, fond of light and gentle warmth, did not wish to see darkness of another kind descend upon the world. But Kronos, who had listened to Gaia's pain and felt the stirrings of time within himself, stepped forward. He accepted the sickle Gaia had inspired him to make. In that moment, he crossed a threshold from contemplative youngest child to the one who would turn the age. Gaia's plan was simple in shape, but immense in consequence. One night, when Uranus descended close to Gaia, as he always did, covering her with a star-filled expanse and pressing down upon her, Kronos would hide in the shadows, clutching the sickle. As Uranus's attention lay elsewhere, Kronos would strike. The act would not destroy the sky, but would separate it from the earth, creating space where before there had been suffocation. In later tellings, this moment would be described in vivid, dramatic terms, blood and pain and crisis. But in this slow, whispered version of a story, it was also the moment when time itself took its first decisive step forward. Night fell softly on the appointed day. The stars brightened overhead, each a tiny, watching eye. Gaia lay still, feeling the familiar press of Uranus descending, his cloak of night wrapping around her. Yet beneath her calm surface, her heart beat faster, like a slow drum echoing in deep caverns. Kronos waited at the edge of the world, at the place where sky and earth seemed to meet. The sickle felt heavy and real in his hand. He was not cruel by nature. He was thoughtful, serious, and aware that what he was about to do would change everything. But he also felt Gaia's tiredness, the trapped potential in her depths, and the quiet insistence of time pushing him onward. When the moment came, it did not arrive with a shout, but with a stillness. Uranus, unassuming, lowered himself in his usual, enveloping way. Gaia exhaled, not in fear, but in a strange, sorrowful relief. From the shadows, Kronos sprang, moving with a grace that belied his size. The sickle's edge met its mark, and the bond between earth and sky was cut. The starry cloak of Aurenas recoiled, and he was forced to rise away, no longer fused so tightly to Gaia's surface. The act itself, in mortal imaginations, would later be painted as harsh and violent, yet in the cosmic sense, it was also an unwinding. The heavens were lifted, the earth was freed. Where once there had been only constriction, there was now distance, openness, a wide breadth of space between Gaia below and Aurenas above. The world, for the first time, could stretch fully, like a sleeper allowed to roll onto a new side after being held in one position for too long. From the drops that fell, later told as the blood of the sky, new beings arose. The Furies, the Erinyes, formed as stern spirits of retribution and conscience, their eyes forever open to injustice. The giants stirred, immense and powerful, their fates tied to struggles yet to come. From the froth that gathered in the distant sea, Aphrodite would one day emerge, goddess of love, born from a moment of sharp change. But in this quiet telling, these births are felt more as ripples than eruptions, a slow unfurling of consequences that would echo through ages. The world shivered once, then settled into a new arrangement. Aurenas, drawn away from Gaia, retreated to the higher heavens. His presence remained in the arching firmament, in the distant glitter of stars, but his direct hold upon the earth was broken. He no longer wrapped himself tightly around Gaia's body. Instead, he watched from afar, wounded and wary. The sky was now a separate realm, high and unreachable, while the earth breathed more easily beneath. Gaia, though grieving the pain of the act, felt lighter. Her buried children stirred with new hope. The Titans, standing upon the newly opened world, realized that they now stood at its center. Kronos, having carried out Gaia's plan, stepped into a new role. With Aurenas' direct rule broken, the mantle of leadership fell upon him. He became the king of the Titans, the new lord of the cosmos, ruling alongside his sister and consort Rhea. Under his guidance, a new age spread over the world, still golden, still abundant, but subtly different. It was no longer an age of pure stillness. It was an age aware of change, of succession, of the way one generation can give way to another. Time, which Kronos personified, was now undeniably moving. Under Kronos' rule, the world flourished. The earth yielded crops without demanding heavy labor. The climate remained mild and gentle, and life, when mortals finally appeared, would be easy and long, according to later poets. This was the Golden Age in its purest sense, a time when food grew abundantly, and beings did not have to toil or fear hardship. Animals roamed freely, rivers flowed clear, and seasons passed in soft, predictable cycles. Kronos presided over this era with a serious, watchful eye, conscious of the power he held and of the weight of what he had done. Yet, as time flowed, because it must, Kronos began to feel a new kind of unease. He had overthrown his own father at Gaia's urging, severing the bond between earth and sky. Aurenas, wounded and distant, spoke a prophecy that Kronos, too, would one day be overthrown by one of his own children, just as he had overthrown his father. The cycle of succession had begun, and with it came a quiet, creeping fear. Kronos, who had once been the instrument of change, now felt the sharp edge of that same change turning back toward him. This knowledge settled into him like a shadow, and it began to shape his choices. As children were born to him and Rhea, Kronos would not greet them simply with joy. He would look at them and see the prophecies outlined in their small forms. He would remember the night when he held the sickle and severed sky from earth. He would feel the weight of time nudging him toward a future where he might no longer sit upon his throne. That fear, quiet at first, would one day grow loud enough to reshape the fate of gods and mortals alike. For now, though, the world under Kronos remained a place of harmony. The newly opened space between earth and sky filled with light, clouds drifting lazily across the heavens. Gaia's buried children waited for their time, feeling the promise of eventual freedom. The Titans lived as the first great rulers, their presence woven into every river, hill, and breeze. The turning of ages had begun, not with a shout, but with a quiet, monumental act carried out in the stillness of night. The story, once simple and still, was now in motion, and somewhere, in a future not yet born, another child, one named Zeus, waited like a distant star, preparing to rise and carry the tale forward into a new and thunderbright age. The golden age under Kronos flowed on like a long, soft afternoon, wrapped in gentle warmth and quiet abundance. The earth gave freely, fruit ripened on branches without being asked, and grain bowed its golden heads to any breeze that passed. Rivers wound their way through green valleys, never running dry, never raging out of control. The sky arched high and clear now, our rain is distant but ever present, watching from the upper reaches of the heavens. Time drifted so slowly that days felt like years, and years like uncounted pauses in a single peaceful breath. And at the heart of this calm stood Kronos, serious and steady, with Rhea at his side, the quiet queen of this era. Yet beneath the surface of this gentle world, another kind of time was moving, steady, relentless, thoughtful. Kronos had heard the prophecy that his father Uranus spat out in wounded anger, the promise that one day Kronos too would be overthrown by one of his own children, just as he had overthrown his father. That prophecy hung in the back of his mind like a faint echo, never loud, but never truly silent either. Each time he looked into the distance, watching clouds drift over mountains or stars form new patterns, the thought returned that nothing in this universe stayed unchanged forever. Even kings of time were not exempt from the slow, gentle pressure of destiny. Rhea, his sister and consort, moved with a different rhythm. Where Kronos was thoughtful and wary, she was soothing, steady, and warm. She felt the cycles of life in a way that Kronos struggled to understand. The quiet joy of beginnings, the sweetness of growth, the inevitability of endings, followed by new beginnings again. To Rhea, the world's fullness called for continuation. She could feel, deep within herself, the stirring of life that wanted to be born, the next generation waiting patiently, like seeds beneath snow. And so, in the midst of Kronos' reign, the time came for them to have children. Their first child was Hestia, a quiet, glowing presence who carried the spirit of the hearth within her. Even as an infant in mythic memory, she symbolized the warmth at the center of every home, a flame that would one day never be extinguished. Rhea looked upon Hestia with a mother's soft delight, feeling the rightness of this new life, the completion that came from bringing another being into the world. But Kronos, cradling his newborn daughter, felt something else as well, a tremor from the prophecy, a faint chill along the edge of his awareness. This child, innocent and peaceful as she was, belonged to the same line that destiny had named as his undoing. The prophecy had said that one of his children would rise against him. It had not said which one. That uncertainty gnawed at Kronos, like an unseen worm inside a ripe fruit. In the stillness of night, while Rhea slept peacefully beside him, Kronos would lie awake, staring up at the high vault of the sky. He remembered the feel of the sickle in his hands, the moment he had struck at his own father. If he had been able to do such a thing, what might his own child someday be capable of? Time, which he personified, did not forget. It repeated, it cycled. It echoed old patterns in new forms. And so, when Hestia was born, Kronos did something that would echo darkly through all the ages of myth. Rather than risk allowing the prophecy to take shape, he chose to swallow the child. This act, remembered in stories, sounds harsh and terrible, but here it can be imagined as a fearful tightening, a refusal to let go. Kronos did not devour her in anger. He consumed her out of dread, a desperate attempt to hold all possible futures inside himself where they could not rise against him. Rhea, horrified and heartbroken, watched her newborn daughter vanish into the vastness of Kronos' godly form. The world did not tremble, the rivers did not rage, but a deep sadness settled into the air, like a cool shadow over a once clear day. Soon after, their next child was born, Demeter, the gentle spirit of grain and harvest, whose very presence promised endless abundance. With Demeter came the feeling of rich soil between fingers, the satisfaction of full baskets, the rhythm of planting and reaping in patient turns. Rhea held her daughter close, feeling both pride and fear. She begged Kronos with her eyes, hoping the experience with Hestia would not be repeated. But Kronos' fear of the prophecy had only grown stronger. The more he loved what his children represented, the more he feared what one of them might become. And so, with a heavy heart and a mind clouded by dread, he swallowed Demeter as well. With each new child, the pattern repeated. Hera came next, carrying in her essence the idea of queenship, of marriage, of dignity and pride. Then Hades, solemn and reserved, with an affinity for the deep and hidden places that would one day form his realm beneath the earth. Each birth was a miracle, another spark of life added to the cosmos, another layer of richness to the great story unfolding. But each time, Kronos, bound by fear, swallowed the child as soon as it emerged, refusing to let the prophecy take breath. Rhea's grief grew with every loss. She would cradle each newborn for only a brief moment before Kronos' shadow fell across her, and the child disappeared into him. Love and sorrow mixed in her heart until they were indistinguishable. On the outside, the golden age continued. Harvests remained abundant, the air stayed mild, and mortals, once they began to appear, lived simple and contented lives under the Titan's gentle rule. But within the household of Kronos and Rhea, there was a quiet, simmering emptiness, a series of beginnings cut short. While Kronos' actions were born from fear, they also created an unintended effect. Inside him, the swallowed children remained alive, preserved in a strange, suspended existence. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and later Poseidon all continued to exist within their father's divine form, like stars hidden behind a thick curtain. Their thoughts were faint, their awareness distant, but they were not gone. They waited, each carrying their own potential, each tied to domains that had not yet fully emerged. Hearth, harvest, marriage, the underworld, the sea. Though Kronos imagined that he had prevented the prophecy, he had really only delayed it. Time could be stretched, but not stopped. Poseidon, born with the rolling strength of waves and storms, followed his siblings into Kronos' depths. With each child Kronos swallowed, Rhea's sorrow began to transform into something steadier, something more resolute. She loved Kronos still, for she remembered the younger Titan who had listened to Gaia and brought freedom to the world. But she could not accept a future where every child of hers disappeared into fear. The emptiness of her arms, the echo of lullabies cut short, stirred a quiet determination within her, much like the determination Gaia herself had once known when she turned to Kronos to free her from Uranus. The cycle was repeating, but this time, the one who saw change was Rhea. When Rhea became pregnant once more, she sensed that this child would be different. Perhaps it was only the weight of her own hope, or perhaps it was some deeper whisper from Gaia and the fabric of fate itself. She knew, however, that she could not bear to lose another child to Kronos' fear. She sought comfort and counsel not from her husband, but from the one who had borne all of them in the first place, Gaia. Gaia, ever present as the ground beneath her feet, listened to Rhea's sorrow. The Earth Mother understood all too well this pattern, this cycle in which a parent consumed their own children out of fear of being replaced. She had watched it happen once already with Uranus, and she knew that the universe could not remain trapped in repeating this pattern forever. Something new had to happen, something that could break the cycle without bringing ruin to everything. Together, Gaia and Rhea formed a plan, quiet and careful. When the time came for Rhea to give birth, she would not remain in the usual halls or fields of the Titans. Instead, she would travel in secret to a hidden place far from Kronos' watchful gaze. In many stories, this place is told as a cave on the island of Crete, nestled among wild trees and echoing with the distant sound of waves. There, under the watchful care of nymphs and spirits loyal to the old earth, she would bring her child into the world. The journey itself was soft and secretive. Rhea walked across slopes and through forests, not as a queen accompanied by attendants, but as a mother moving through the world with quiet purpose. The wind followed her like a gentle companion, rustling leaves and carrying the faint murmur of distant seas. The earth seemed to support each of her steps with special care, Gaia guiding her toward the safe place they had chosen together. In the hidden cave, cool and dark but filled with a peaceful stillness, Rhea finally gave birth to her last child, Zeus. He came into the world with the bright energy of change coiled within him, like a spark ready to catch. His cry, though no louder than any infant's, seemed to echo softly along the stone walls, mixing with the drip of unseen water and the faint rustle of leaves at the cave's mouth. Rhea, holding him close, felt something she had not felt with her other children. Not just tenderness, but a strong surge of hope, as if the universe itself exhaled in relief at his arrival. Outside the cave, the world continued as usual under Kronos' rule. The Golden Age still glowed softly, unaware that its end was quietly being prepared in secret. Rhea knew, however, that she could not keep Zeus hidden without some cleverness. Kronos would expect a child, and if she simply claimed that there had been none, his suspicion would be aroused. So, guided again by Gaia's wisdom, Rhea took a stone and wrapped it in swaddling cloth, shaping it into the rough form of an infant. With a heavy but resolute heart, she brought this false child before Kronos. Kronos, bound by habit and fear, did as he had done before. He took the wrapped bundle and swallowed it, believing he had once more prevented the prophecy from taking shape. The stone descended into his depths, where his other swallowed children remained, silent and waiting. Rhea turned away, hiding the flicker of relief in her eyes behind a mask of sorrow. To Kronos, it seemed that fate had been thwarted again. To Rhea and Gaia, it was the moment hope became real. Back in the hidden cave, Zeus grew under the care of nymphs and the old earth. Some stories say that the goat Amalthea nourished him with her milk, and that bees brought him honey. Others say that the Curetes, guardians in armor, danced and clashed their weapons to mask the sound of his cries, so that Kronos would never hear. In this quiet telling, imagine only gentle sounds, the low bleating of a kind animal, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the soft drip of water into small, clear pools. The cave was his first home, a place where light and shadow met in gentle balance, where he could grow in safety while the world outside moved toward its turning point. Thus, the birth of Zeus did not come with thunder or lightning, but with secrecy, love, and quiet courage. Rhea, who had endured loss after loss, finally found a way to break the pattern that had stolen her children. Gaia, who had once guided Kronos against Uranus, now guided this new turn of the tale, helping a mother save her son. Kronos, unaware, continued to rule the world in apparent security, never realizing that the very force he once embodied, time and change, was already preparing the next chapter in the shadows. While Zeus played among the rocks and trees, learning the language of wind and stone, his siblings still waited inside Kronos, their lives paused but not extinguished. Somewhere in the upper heavens, Uranus watched, dim but enduring, perhaps seeing in his grandson the same glint of fate he had seen once before in Kronos. The Golden Age remained outwardly peaceful, but beneath its surface, the future had been set in motion. A hidden child was growing, the last-born son of Rhea and Kronos, destined one day to return, to challenge the father who had swallowed his own children, and to reshape the order of heaven and earth once more. For now, though, the world stayed gentle. The seas whispered along the shores, the fields waved softly in the breeze, and the cave on the mountainside held a secret no one yet knew. The story had reached a quiet pause, like the moment before dawn when the sky grows pale and still. In that hush, Zeus breathed, Rhea hoped, Gaia watched, and time itself took a slow, patient step toward the age of the Olympian gods. The world did not notice, at first, that something had changed. The Golden Age under Kronos still looked gentle from a distance, fields full and thick, trees heavy with fruit, rivers moving and slow, glassy lines across the land. The sky, now distant and high, rested in soft blue arcs during the day and unfolded its starry cloak each night. To anyone living upon the earth then, it must have felt as though this calm would last forever, like an endless afternoon of warm light and easy breath. Yet beneath that quiet surface, in places unseen by mortal eyes, a quiet rebellion was beginning to grow, not as a sudden blaze, but as the slow warming of embers in the dark. Zeus, hidden away in his cave, grew steadily under the careful watch of nymphs and the old earth. The stone chamber curled around him like a protective shell, cool and dim, but pierced here and there by threads of soft light that slipped through cracks in the rock. Outside, leaves rustled in gentle breezes, and the distant sound of waves came, and went like slow breathing. Each day, the child of Rhea and Kronos learned a little more about the world his father ruled, but did not know he inhabited. He learned the shapes of shadows, the taste of mountain air, the music of water dropping rhythmically into still pools. Around him, the nymphs tended to simple tasks with a kind of ritual grace. They carried fresh water in smooth stone jars, gathered sweet herbs and fruits from nearby slopes, and whispered lullabies in ancient, wordless melodies. Zeus would listen, eyes half closed, as the sound of their voices mingled with the quiet hum of the cave. Sometimes, when he grew restless, they led him to the cave's mouth, where he could sit and watch the world without being seen. Small animals moving through the underbrush, birds tracing lazy arcs across the sky, clouds drifting slowly like thoughts that had not yet become words. Zeus grew quickly, as divine children often do, his presence gathering strength like a flame fed by steady fuel. He was curious, more energetic than the still, heavy titans, yet the cave and its surroundings taught him patience. He learned to move silently over stone, to watch more than he spoke, to sense the subtle moods of wind and earth. Sometimes, when he sat very still, he could almost feel the great heart of Gaia beating beneath him, slow and immense, like distant thunder muffled by miles of stone. He did not yet know his full story, but he could feel that he belonged to something larger, something waiting, far away. On high thrones and broad hills, Kronos continued to rule. To others, he appeared calm, dignified and unshakable. His sickle, now at rest, hung as a symbol of the act that had separated earth and sky and ushered in the Golden Age. But deep inside him, hidden where no one could see, his swallowed children still lived. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon existed in a strange, suspended state, like stars behind a veil, like seeds buried but not dead. They could not move freely, could not speak or act, yet they endured. In the quiet recesses of Kronos' being, their presence flickered like distant lanterns in fog. There must have been moments in the long quiet of Titan rule when Kronos felt strangeness within himself, a fullness that was more than his own power, a complicated layering of presences. Perhaps he dismissed it as the echo of time, the weight of his own authority. Or perhaps, in his most private, guarded thoughts, he knew exactly what it was and chose not to let his mind dwell upon it. Fear, once invited into a heart, often prefers not to be looked at too closely. Rhea, meanwhile, lived between two worlds. Outwardly, she remained the queen at Kronos' side, composed and gracious, maintaining the image of harmony that defined the Golden Age. Inwardly, her heart traveled constantly between that realm and the hidden cave where Zeus was growing. She visited when she could, in dreams and in secret journeys, bringing small comforts, a new cloth, a whispered story, a touch of comfort upon his brow. Each time she returned to Kronos' halls, she carried the knowledge that their youngest child was alive, safe, and destined for something that might heal the sorrow that had taken root inside her. As Zeus grew, so too did his questions. Who was his father? Why did he live in hiding instead of under the open sky like the birds? Why did the nymphs sometimes look sad when they thought he wasn't watching? The nymphs answered gently, in fragments and metaphors, until one day Gaia herself, who had been watching over all of this, reached out to Zeus in the way she once had to Kronos, through feelings that rose up from the ground and settled quietly in his awareness. She showed him images, a towering figure with serious eyes and a sickle in his hand, standing over a subdued sky, a queen with sorrow in her gaze, holding an infant only to have it taken away, a stone wrapped in cloth, swallowed like a child. She showed him the swallowed siblings, still alive, waiting in silence within their father. She gave him the sense of a world held in a careful balance that could not last, and she let him understand, slowly and gently, that he was not just a hidden child, but the answer to a long, painful pattern. Zeus did not respond with rage. He was young, but his spirit was shaped by the cave's quiet, by the patience of nymphs, by the steady heartbeat of the earth beneath him. Instead, he responded with focus. He began to train himself, not with weapons or armies, for those things did not yet have the meaning they would later carry, but with inner readiness. He learned to call upon the breeze, to listen more clearly to the murmur of distant storms. Somewhere high above, the first trace of thunder seemed to curl around his name, not yet a roar, but a promise. Gaia and Rhea together began to weave the next part of the plan. The first rebellion had been Gaia's, when she chose Kronos to separate her from Uranus. Now, a second and quieter rebellion was underway. Rhea's and Gaia's joint intention that Zeus would one day confront Kronos, not simply to repeat the old pattern of fear, but to move the story forward. To do that, Zeus would need allies. He would need knowledge, and he would need a way to free his siblings from the strange prison in which they lived. In some versions of the tale, it is said that Zeus eventually left the cave and traveled in disguise, learning the ways of the world, seeing his father's rule from afar. Imagine him walking the slopes of the world now, cloaked like an ordinary wanderer, his divine nature muted but never suppressed. He would have seen the ease with which fields produced their crops, the gentleness of the climate, the lack of hardship among the early mortals. He would also have seen the stillness beneath it all, the way the Titans held themselves apart, half-rooted in old certainties. It was a beautiful world, but it was also one where potential remained locked away, in Kronos' depths, in the untested hearts of gods and gods-to-be. Zeus came to understand that his purpose was not merely to overthrow a tyrant, but to release what had been swallowed, his siblings, their domains, their contributions to the cosmos. He felt a quiet love for those he had never met, like caring for voices heard only in dreams. The hearth needed to be lit, the harvest needed a goddess to tend it, the underworld needed a ruler, the seas needed a lord, the sacred bonds of marriage needed a divine protector. Without them, the world was incomplete, a lovely but unfinished song. The plan to free them took shape with the same slow care that had shaped the sickle long ago. Zeus, guided by Gaia's wisdom and by others who favored change, learned how he might approach Kronos without revealing himself as a threat. In some stories, he served Kronos in disguise, perhaps offering drink or counsel. In this soft, sleepy telling, imagine him simply approaching as a stranger on a quiet day, bearing a cup that shimmered faintly with hidden power. The cup held a mixture not of poison but of provocation, a draught that would loosen what was bound, that would cause Kronos to bring forth what he had taken in. Later tales name Metis, the goddess of cunning, as the one who provided this drink, making Zeus her instrument. However it came to be, the essence remains the same. Zeus, with patient courage, returned to the father who had never known him, carrying the key to a release long overdue dat Britannica. When Kronos drank from the cup, he did not yet suspect that the quiet stranger before him was his own son. The liquid passed into him like any other, but then slowly, a strange feeling began to rise within, the fullness he had carried for so long, that strange layered presence of swallowed children, and a stone wrapped in cloth began to shift. The hidden lives, held for so many ages, stirred as if awakened from a deep sleep. In myth, this moment is often depicted as sudden and dramatic, Kronos heaving, the children emerging fully grown and armed. Here, it can be imagined as a long, strange exhale. One by one, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon emerged from Kronos, not as babes but as fully formed gods, stepping back into the world as if from a dream. The stone, too, came forth, proof of the deception that had saved Zeus. Kronos, emptied of what he had feared and tried to contain, must have felt at once lighter and terribly exposed. He had lost not only his children, but the illusion that he could hold back the future by swallowing it. The prophecy had not been prevented. It had been patiently waiting inside him, gathering strength. Zeus stood now not as a hidden child, but as a revealed son, surrounded by the very siblings whose lives had been locked away. Hestia brought with her the calm warmth of home, Demeter, the promise of harvest, Hera, the dignity of queenship, Hades, the quiet gravity of the underworld, Poseidon, the restless power of the seas. Together, they formed a new center of gravity in the cosmos. Kronos' reign, once unchallenged, now faced a gentle but firm new force. The quiet rebellion was no longer hidden. It had stepped into the light. The world, still wrapped in the outward calm of the Golden Age, now held within it the seeds of a new order. The rebellion had happened, not with shouting armies, but with careful plans, hidden growth, and a single shared cup. The Titans still stood, but their unchallenged age was ending. Zeus, once a child hiding in a cave by a secret shore, now stood ready to guide the next turning of time. The quiet rebellion had become a gentle dawn, and somewhere above, the clouds began to gather in shapes that, someday, would carry thunder. For now, though, the air remained soft, the river steady, and the tale moved on in its slow, unhurried way, toward storms that would reshape the heavens and a new home for gods on a mountain called Olympus. When the long struggle between the younger gods and the Titans finally eased, the world felt as though it had taken a deep, slow breath and was now resting in the quiet that follows a storm. The skies, once heavy with the tension of change, began to clear. The earth, which had trembled under the weight of shifting powers, settled again into stillness. Seas calmed, winds softened, and in the hush that followed, a new order gently began to unfold. The age of the Titans had given way to the age of the Olympians, not as a sudden snap, but as a gradual, inevitable turning of a great wheel. Zeus, now the acknowledged king of the gods, did not rush to claim every corner of creation for himself. Instead, there was a careful sharing, a thoughtful dividing of realms that reflected the nature of each of his siblings. To Hades went the underworld, the deep and quiet place beneath the earth where shadows and souls would one day drift, guided and kept with solemn care. To Poseidon went the seas, their rolling power and hidden depths matching his shifting moods and restless strength. To Zeus himself belonged the open sky, the bright air, the clouds and winds, the thunder and lightning that could split them. Though for now, in this gentle telling, those forces rested mostly in silence, like instruments stored away between songs. With the great struggle behind them and the realms defined, the new gods needed a home, a place that could hold their presence, their councils, their feasts, and their quiet moments of thought. It could not be a simple hill or an ordinary valley. It had to be a place that stood between earth and sky, close enough to see the mortal world below, but high enough to touch the drifting paths of clouds. For this, they chose a mountain, tall, dignified, and long accustomed to watching the ages pass without haste. That mountain was Olympus. Mount Olympus did not need to be carved or raised. It had already stood for ages, a patient pillar under the sky. But under the touch of the new gods, it began to change in ways both subtle and wondrous. Its slopes, once wild and solitary, became pathways lined with soft grasses and bright flowers that did not fade with the seasons. Streams that had once trickled quietly from its heights became clear, singing brooks that glowed faintly in moonlight. The summit, where rock had once stood bare and sharp, softened into wide, level spaces where palaces of light and stone could rest without disturbing the mountain's ancient dignity. On Olympus's heights, the gods fashioned their homes not as cold, distant fortresses, but as radiant halls that seemed almost to grow from the mountain itself. The walls shimmered like polished marble softened by age, reflecting sunlight in gentle, diffused glows. Columns rose like tree trunks of stone, supporting roofs that gleamed faintly with gold and ivory. Courtyards opened toward the sky, where breezes wandered freely, carrying the scent of ambrosia and the sound of quiet laughter. The air at this height was always mild, never too hot, never too cold, as if the mountain itself wanted its guests to feel at ease. Zeus's hall stood at the center, a place of broad steps and open doors where clouds sometimes drifted in like wandering visitors. From there, he could look out over the world in every direction, across the wide seas, over the patchwork of islands, to distant mountains and valleys where mortals would someday build their cities. Beside him, Hera's presence brought a sense of solemn dignity to Olympus. Her halls, close to his, were calm, orderly, and bright, adorned with symbols of marriage, family, and the quiet strength of loyalty. Around them, the other gods began to take their places. Demeter with her soft fields and storerooms of grain, Hestia tending an eternal flame, Poseidon visiting from the sea's edge, Hades seldom seen but always felt in a certain knowledge of what lay below. Life on Olympus moved at a pace different from the lives of mortals below. Days flowed into nights without hurry, and nights gave way to mornings with a gentle grace. The gods gathered for feasts where ambrosia and nectar were served by soft-footed attendants, their conversations rising and falling like quiet music. They spoke of the shaping of the world, of rivers and winds, of stars and seasons, of the first small communities of mortals beginning to stir along coasts and in sheltered valleys. There was laughter, yes, but it never shattered the air. Even the joy of the gods carried an echo of the old cosmic calm. Sometimes Zeus would step away from the bright company and walk to the edge of Olympus's peak, where the stone dropped away into distant cloud and open air. From there, he could see lightning sleeping in the folds of clouds, waiting for the moments when it must be called upon. His thunderbolt, a gift from the Cyclopes, rested at his side, not as a threat, but as a reminder of the responsibility he bore. Ruling from Olympus meant not merely holding power, but watching, listening, and knowing when to let the world move on its own and when to intervene. Below, the world continued to soften under the new order. The scars of the old struggles faded as forests regrew, rivers cleared, and mountains settled. Mortals, still in their early ages, lived simple lives, close to the land and sky. When they looked up at Olympus, they might see only a high, distant mountain cloaked in cloud. They could not see the shining halls or the gods moving along its ridges. Yet in quiet moments, by a hearth, in a field at dusk, beside a gentle sea, they might feel a presence, a watchfulness, a calm sense that the world was held in the hands of beings who lived above the storms. Inside Olympus, Hestia tended the central hearth, a fire that never went out. Its light flickered softly on the polished floors and columns, its warmth binding the gods together much as it would someday bind families in mortal homes. Demeter watched over the cycles of growth below, ensuring that the fields answered the needs of those who tilled them. Hera kept watch on oaths and unions, adding a layer of sacredness to the bonds mortals formed. Poseidon returned often to his watery realm, but he too was part of this circle, his trident leaning nearby when he sat at the feasting tables. Hades remained mostly in his quiet kingdom beneath the earth, but even he had a seat at Olympus if ever he chose to climb up and rest among his kin. Olympus became not only a physical place, but a symbol, a center where divine presence gathered and from which it flowed outward into the world. In the soft air around its peaks, stories formed like mist, tales that mortals would one day tell of gods who laughed, loved, quarreled, and feasted, yet always remained a little distant, a little above. For now, in this night-soft version of the tale, Olympus stood simply as a home, a quiet, shining perch between heaven and earth, where the gods could watch the unfolding of ages, speak softly among themselves, and let the newly ordered world rest. In the stillness of night, when mortals below closed their eyes and drifted into dreams, Olympus remained awake, its halls dimly lit by starlight and the glow of Hestia's flame. Above the mountain, constellations turned in their slow, unending dance, and below, the world breathed quietly. The shaping of Olympus marked the settling of a new order, a gentle, luminous center to the great tapestry of Greek myth, where the gods could rest between their stories, and from which those stories could spill softly into the minds of those who listened, half awake, on distant shores and in quiet rooms, at the edge of sleep. The world had settled into a new, gentle pattern by the time Olympus became the familiar home of the gods. The age of raw creation and of great cosmic struggle was behind them now, like distant thunder that had rolled away over the horizon. In its place, a softer rhythm took hold. Days rose and fell with calm predictability. Seasons turned like slow pages in a book. Mortals below began to live, work, and rest under a sky that felt watched over, guided, and, at least from far away, mercifully steady. High above them all, on the bright slopes of Mount Olympus, the family of the Olympian gods began to understand themselves not just as rulers, but as a kind of household, connected in ways that were deep, old, and sometimes quietly complicated. Zeus, seated at the center of this divine family, carried the sky in his presence. When he walked through the shining halls of Olympus, there was a sense of open air around him, as if the ceiling were always just a little higher, wherever he stood. His eyes held the brightness of sunlight on clouds and the dim, steady glow of stars seen from the highest peaks. Yet for all his power, much of his life on Olympus was not thunder and lightning, but listening to the concerns of his siblings, to the soft requests of lesser gods, to the faint, drifting prayers that rose from far below. He was not always gentle, but in the quiet moments, his watchfulness had a certain calm to it, like a vast sky that could hold many different kinds of weather without breaking. Hera, his sister and consort, moved through Olympus with a quieter kind of power. If Zeus embodied the broad, changeable sky, Hera carried the weight of promises, oaths, and the intricate ties that held relationships together. Her gaze was steady, and her posture dignified, like a queen who understood that true authority often lived in the patterns of daily life rather than in grand displays. Where Zeus might look outward, over seas and cities, Hera often looked inward, into halls, homes, bonds, and vows. She cared deeply about honor and respect, about how people treated one another and the commitments they made. In a world where gods and mortals both sometimes forgot their promises, Hera became the quiet, persistent memory of them. Hestia, the eldest sister, was the soft flame in the background of everything. On Olympus, she tended the central hearth, a fire that was never allowed to die. Its glow was constant but never harsh, its warmth enveloping but never overwhelming. Hestia's presence did not demand attention. It simply made the entire mountain feel like a home. While other gods discussed politics, love affairs, or great journeys, Hestia remained close to the fire, her gentle focus lending a sense of grounding to their immortal lives. In the mortal world below, every hearth that warmed a small farmhouse or city dwelling bore a hint of her spirit, each one a tiny mirror of the flame she kept on Olympus. Demeter, the sister who felt most closely tied to the earth below, spent much of her time half in the heavens and half in the fields. On Olympus, her chambers were filled with sheaves of grain, baskets of fruit, and wreaths of dried flowers. She often looked down from the mountain to watch over plowed land, sprouting stalks, and ripening harvests. To mortals, Demeter's care meant full granaries and safe winters. To the gods, it meant that the world remained nourished and steady. She carried in her heart a tender, protective love for the cycles of growth, a love that would one day be tested when she experienced loss and separation through her daughter, Persephone. But for now, in this early period, her presence on Olympus was simple and reassuring, like the smell of bread baking in a warm home. Below the shining courtyards, in places even deeper than the roots of mountains, Hades tended to his own realm with a very different kind of quiet care. While he did not live upon Olympus in the way his siblings did, he was as much a part of the family story as any of them. His kingdom, the underworld, was not simply a place of gloom. It was an ordered space where souls would eventually find their way when their time among the living was done. Hades himself, often imagined as stern and reserved, carried a seriousness that balanced the brightness of the upper world. He did not seek attention. He did not demand worship or noise. Instead, he kept his realm in meticulous order, a kind of solemn, necessary stillness beneath the busy flow of life. Poseidon, meanwhile, moved more often between the sea and Olympus. On the ocean surface, his trident drew patterns that shaped tides, storms, and calms. The waves answered to his moods, rising in restless swells or smoothing into mirrored calm. When he climbed to Olympus, water seemed to cling to his hair and robes as if reluctant to leave him. Among his siblings, Poseidon was perhaps the most visibly powerful, a god whose emotions could echo in the world below as rolling surf and distant thunder along the shore. Yet there were gentle sides to him, too, in the quiet depth of still lakes and the calm, rhythmic breath of the sea on peaceful days. Together, these siblings formed the core of the new divine order. Zeus in the sky, Hera in the halls of home and marriage, Hestia at the hearth, Demeter in the fields, Poseidon in the waves, Hades in the depths below. They did not always agree, and in later stories their disagreements would become tales of jealousy, anger, and pain. But in this early time, imagine them more as a group still settling into their roles, learning how to share a world that had only recently escaped the shadow of swallowing and fear. They had all, in their own ways, lived through confinement, whether in Kronos' depths, in caves, or in hidden realms. That shared experience gave their family bond an unusual strength, even when they disagreed. Around them, younger gods and goddesses began to gather, each adding another layer of personality to the Olympian household. Hermes with his quick, clever steps, Apollo with his light and music, Artemis with her silent, moonlit hunts, Ares with his restless martial spirit, Athena, whose wisdom and strategy seemed born from thought itself. Not all of them had arrived yet in this part of the story, but the shape of Olympus as a living, breathing community was already forming. It was not a static pantheon, but a growing family, sprawling and intricate, with all the quiet tensions and deep loyalties of any large household. For the mortals below, the existence of these divine siblings was felt more than seen. Farmers might sense Demeter in the softness of ripe grain, Hestia in the warmth of a family fire, Poseidon in the whisper and crash of waves that came and went each day. Travelers who looked up at storms might speak Zeus's name with a mix of awe and hope that the clouds would pass gently. Those who sensed the inevitability of endings might whisper Hades's name with respect, not hatred, and those who bound their lives together in partnership might invoke Hera, hoping she watched over their promises. The gods, from their high vantage point, seemed distant, yet in almost every aspect of daily existence, their presence lay like a thin, invisible thread, weaving itself through cooking fires, harvest fields, sea crossings, and quiet burials. On Olympus, evenings often fell in a gentle sequence. The light turned honey-colored across the marble floors, casting long, soft shadows from the pillars. The gods drifted toward shared spaces, courtyards, halls, and the central hearth. Hestia's fire glowed brighter as the sun lowered, its steady light anchoring the twilight. Zeus might sit in quiet conversation with Hera, while Demeter listened to the distant rustle of fields below. Poseidon, if visiting, would rest briefly from the constant motion of waves. Hades' presence would be felt in the unspoken knowledge that all things had their time. In these moments, with the air cool and stars beginning to bloom in the sky, the Olympian family felt almost like any family at rest after a long day, connected not just by power, but by shared history and quiet, enduring ties. In this gentle phase of their story, before many of the more dramatic myths take shape, the Olympian gods can be imagined as simply becoming themselves, learning the contours of their roles, the ways their powers touched the world, and the bonds that held them together. High on Olympus, with clouds curled around its slopes and the mortal world resting far below, they watched over the turning of days, the growth of fields, the rise and fall of waves, and the quiet heartbeat of the earth. And as night settled over both gods and mortals, the shared sky above them all stretched wide and soft, like a great, calm blanket under which every story, every life, and every dream could slowly drift toward sleep. High on Olympus, where the air always carried a faint scent of ambrosia and distant pine, the gods had settled into their new rhythms. Zeus watched over the vast sky. Hera tended the sacred bonds of family. Demeter nurtured the earth's quiet cycles. Hestia kept the eternal flame glowing softly in the heart of it all. Poseidon roamed the seas with his rolling moods, and Hades maintained solemn order in the shadowed depths below. The world turned gently beneath them, seasons unfolding like slow breaths, rivers tracing ancient paths, winds whispering through young forests. Yet something was still missing from this ordered cosmos. Beings who could truly live upon the earth, who could feel its textures, tend its gifts, and carry stories forward through time. Mortals had not yet taken shape, and the land waited, patient and empty, like a vast canvas awaiting its first careful strokes. Among the gods who watched this emptiness with particular thoughtfulness was Prometheus, son of the Titan Iapetus. Prometheus was not one of the core Olympians, but he moved among them with a keen, restless mind. Where many gods saw the world as a grand design already complete, Prometheus saw possibility. Spaces where new life could stir, where fire could warm cold hands, where cleverness could shape stone into shelter. He had watched the long struggles between generations of gods, from chaos to titans to Olympians, and he understood that creation was not a single act, but an ongoing unfolding. During the great conflict, Prometheus had sided with Zeus, offering counsel and strategy. Now, in the calm that followed, He turned his gaze downward, to the fertile clay of Gaia's body, and felt a quiet urge to bring something new into being. Prometheus descended from Olympus's heights, not with thunder or fanfare, but with the steady steps of someone who knows exactly what he intends. He walked the quiet valleys and riverbanks, feeling the cool dampness of earth under his feet, listening to the soft hush of water over stone. Gaia, ever watchful, seemed to approve of his presence. Flowers turned their faces toward him. Streams flowed a little clearer. Prometheus knelt by a wide, still pool where clay lay rich and workable, soft as fresh dough. With his own hands, strong yet precise, he began to shape it, mixing water and earth until the form took on the gentle curves of a human body. Arms to reach, legs to wander, eyes to see the turning stars. The first humans emerged not as perfect statues, but as living beings, warm, breathing, curious. Prometheus breathed life into them, not with divine fire yet, but with the spark of awareness, the quiet wonder of existence. Men and women opened their eyes to the world around them, the rustle of leaves, the taste of clear spring water, the warmth of sunlight on bare skin. They were not gods, but they carried something godlike, a capacity to learn, to build, to love, to tell stories by firelight. Prometheus watched them take their first steps, feeling a deep satisfaction, like an artist stepping back from a finished work that still holds endless possibility. These were not slaves to serve the gods, nor rivals to challenge them. They were companions to share the earth, to tend its rhythms and carry its beauty forward. Yet even as Prometheus admired his creation, he saw their limitations. The humans shivered in the evenings as shadows lengthened, gathered dry branches with fumbling hands, huddled close for warmth that never quite lasted through the night. They ate raw fruits and roots, their meals simple but fleeting. Fire, that great transformer, cook of food, warmer of homes, illuminator of dark, remained beyond their reach, held tightly by Zeus on Olympus as a symbol of divine power. Prometheus, ever watchful, saw the quiet suffering in their huddling forms and felt a pang of compassion. These beings, shaped from the same clay as the world itself, deserved more than cold nights and uncertain light. Climbing back to Olympus under cover of twilight, Prometheus moved with purpose. He knew the risks. Zeus had made it clear that certain gifts belonged solely to the gods. But Prometheus's mind worked like a river finding its path around stone, persistent, clever, unyielding. In the dead of night, when the halls of Olympus lay quiet and Hestia's hearth burned low, he approached the sacred fire. With a fennel stalk, hollow and perfect for carrying ember, he stole a glowing coal, shielding it carefully as he descended once more to the earth below. The flame within the stalk flickered softly, alive and eager to share itself. When Prometheus reached the humans once more, gathered in their simple shelters against the evening chill, he presented the gift. He touched the fennel stalk to dry tinder, and flame bloomed, first small and tentative, then steady and warm. Faces that had known only twilight now glowed in firelight. Hands that had trembled with cold now held comfort. Food transformed from raw sustenance to cooked nourishment, rich with new flavors. Stories began to be told, shadows dancing on cave walls as voices rose and fell in rhythm. The humans looked upon Prometheus with awe, naming him their benefactor, their bringer of light. Fire became their constant companion, turning night into a time of gathering rather than fear. Word of this gift reached Olympus swiftly, carried on winds that whispered to Zeus. The king of gods felt not just anger, but betrayal, a violation of the careful boundaries he had set between divine and mortal realms. Prometheus had overstepped, giving humans something that elevated them too close to godhood itself. Zeus, whose rule rested on maintaining order after ages of chaos, could not let this stand unchallenged. He summoned Prometheus to the mountain's heights, where clouds gathered like silent witnesses. The confrontation was not a shouting match, but a solemn reckoning. Zeus banished Prometheus to a distant peak, binding him with unbreakable chains forged by Hephaestus, the lame god of the forge. There, an eagle would come each day to feed on his ever-regenerating liver, a punishment as eternal as it was poignant. Yet even in his suffering, Prometheus did not regret his gift. From his rocky prison, he could still see distant fires twinkling in valleys below, hear faint laughter carried on night breezes. He had given humans not just warmth, but possibility, the ability to create, to endure, to shape their world through cleverness and care. Zeus, watching from Olympus, understood the depth of this act. He respected Prometheus's courage, even as he upheld the boundaries of divine order. In time, the punishment would soften, but the gift of fire remained, woven forever into human life. With fire established among mortals, the world felt fuller, more complete. Villages began to form around hearths, where Hestia's spirit lingered invisibly. Fields expanded under Demeter's watchful eye, yielding more as humans learned to till and harvest with purpose. Poseidon heard their first boats creaking on his waves. Hera sensed their first promises exchanged in firelight. Zeus, from his throne, saw smoke rising like prayers from countless rooftops, a sign that the earth now shared its life with beings who could cherish it. Prometheus's humans multiplied, spreading across islands and plains, their lives woven with the gifts of gods, yet distinctly their own. These early mortals lived simply, close to the rhythms of nature. They built homes of stone and wood, gathered in circles to share meals cooked over open flames, sang soft songs to the turning stars. They felt the gods not as distant tyrants, but as presences in every aspect of existence. In the crackle of fire, the swell of grain, the steady crash of waves. When night fell, they lay by their hearths, watching embers glow like captured stars, drifting into dreams where gods and humans sometimes met as equals. On Olympus, the gods reflected on this new layer of creation. Zeus pondered the balance between gift and boundary, Hera the responsibilities that came with connection, Demeter the partnership between earth and those who walked upon it. Prometheus, though bound, smiled in his suffering, knowing he had sparked something irreversible, a human spirit that would question, create, endure, and one day reach toward the stars themselves. The creation of humans marked not an ending, but a gentle expansion. The world now held not just gods and nature, but souls capable of wonder, of firelit tales whispered into endless night. As embers settled and night deepened, humans slept by their fires, dreams mingling with the quiet watch of gods above. The clay had been shaped, fire shared, and life began its long, patient dance upon the earth, tender, flickering, enduring through every shadow and dawn. The gift of fire had settled into human hands like a quiet companion, warming their nights and lighting their paths through shadowed valleys. Villages grew a little larger, hearths burned a little steadier, and stories passed from one generation to the next in the soft glow of embers. Prometheus, bound to his rocky crag, watched from afar with a faint, enduring smile, knowing his spark had taken root. Yet on Olympus, Zeus turned this act over in his thoughts, not with lasting anger, but with a measured sense of balance. Humans now held something divine, a piece of the god's own essence. Such a quality, even in small measure, required a counterweight, a reminder of the boundaries between mortal curiosity and heavenly wisdom. What followed was not punishment and cruelty, but a gentle lesson wrapped in beauty, told through the quiet figure of Pandora. Prometheus had acted alone, but his brother Epimetheus, thoughtful yet sometimes too trusting, walked more closely among the early humans. Epimetheus tended to the creatures of the earth, giving swiftness to the deer, strength to the bull, cunning to the fox. When he came upon the humans shaped by Prometheus, he saw their clever hands, but also their vulnerabilities. No fur against winter's chill, no claws for defense, no wings for flight. In his kindness, Epimetheus wished to remedy this, to make them whole companions to the world around them. Yet in his haste to give, he overlooked a deeper gift that Zeus had prepared, a gift meant not just for survival, but for wonder and choice. From Olympus's heights, Zeus crafted something extraordinary. He called upon Hephaestus, the steady god of forge and craft, to shape a figure from gleaming earth and shimmering water, polished smooth as river stone yet alive with breath. Athena draped her in silver robes woven with threads of starlight, teaching her the gentle arts of weaving and melody. Aphrodite breathed beauty into her form, a quiet radiance that drew the eye without demanding it. Hermes added a spark of curiosity, the soft voice of questions that lead one step beyond the known. Together, the gods named her Pandora, all gifted, a living mosaic of divine graces. She was not made as a trap or a curse, but as a mirror, beauty holding questions, grace carrying choices. Pandora descended to the world below, her steps light as falling petals, her presence drawing quiet wonder from all who saw her. Epimetheus, meeting her by a clear stream where wildflowers nodded in the breeze, felt his heart stir in a way no animal gift had stirred it. Here was companionship beyond strength or speed, a shared gaze, a gentle word, the comfort of another soul walking the same paths. He welcomed her without question, forgetting the warnings Prometheus had sent from his chains, to accept no further gifts from Zeus, lest they carry hidden weights. Together, Pandora and Epimetheus built a simple home amid fertile fields, where mornings brought shared labors and evenings brought stories told by firelight. In their house stood a single, unremarkable jar, large, sealed, holding the essence of Zeus's counterbalance. Pandora, with her Hermes-given curiosity, often gazed upon it during quiet moments. It was not ugly or ominous, but intriguing, like a locked book whose pages whispered faint promises. The jar held not evils alone, but the full spectrum of human experience. Toil that tempers strength, illness that teaches care, age that brings wisdom, longing that fuels creation. Pandora did not know this. She only felt the gentle pull of wonder, the desire to understand more of the world she had entered. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in muted lavender and the fire crackled softly outside, Pandora's hand rested upon the jar's lid. Epimetheus slept nearby, tired from the day's work. The air held a hush, broken only by distant owl calls and the rustle of leaves. With no malice, only the innocent reach of someone newly born to questions, Pandora lifted the seal. What rose was not a storm, but a slow mist, pale tendrils carrying the textures of mortal life, the ache of labor, the shadow of loss, the weight of time's passage. They drifted through the home and into the world, settling gently like dew upon human lives. The mist spread beyond their threshold, touching villages and lone wanderers alike. Humans felt new layers awaken within them, the effort of plowing hard soil, the care needed for the sick, the bittersweet pull of farewells. Life became richer, more textured, not cursed, but complete. Toil brought satisfaction and rest earned. Age brought stories worth telling. Longing sparked songs and crafts that endured beyond a lifetime. Yet in the jar's depths, one essence remained, sealed now by Pandora's swift hand. Elpis, hope, a gentle light that balanced every shadow, whispering that endurance held its own quiet reward. Zeus, watching from Olympus, nodded slowly. The balance was restored. Humans, gifted with fire's cleverness, now carried the full measure of mortal experience. Pandora herself felt no shame, only a deeper understanding of the world she had joined. She walked beside Epimetheus through changing seasons, their home a place where joy and effort mingled like threads in a woven cloth. From their union would come the next generations of humans, each carrying the spark of Prometheus, the gifts of Pandora, and the textured fullness of life's jar. Mortals below adapted to this new completeness. Fields demanded sweat but yielded fuller harvests under Demeter's care. Hearths warmed not just bodies, but gatherings of kin under Hestia's glow. Seas challenged Poseidon's boats but taught resilience. Hera watched over bonds tested by time's weight. In every village, tales of Pandora spread, not as blame, but as parable, that beauty holds questions, curiosity opens doors, and what emerges shapes us gently into wholeness. On Olympus, the gods reflected upon this chapter. Prometheus, from his crag, sensed the balance his fire had sparked. Epimetheus learned caution's quiet wisdom. Pandora became a symbol, not of downfall, but of the human spirit's full unfolding. Beautiful, questioning, enduring. Her story whispered through ages, told by firelight to sleepy listeners, reminding them that life's jar holds shadows and lights in equal measure, with hope always waiting at the bottom. Nights deepened across the world. Humans gathered closer to their fires, sharing Pandora's tale in hushed voices. The jar's lessons settled into their bones, curiosity as companion, toil as teacher, hope as anchor. Above, stars turned slowly, gods watched patiently, and the earth breathed with lives now fully textured, tender, striving, complete in their beautiful mortality. With humans now walking the earth, warm hands tending fires, curious eyes tracing stars, hearts woven with Pandora's full tapestry of gifts, the world entered a new kind of rhythm. No longer just the domain of gods and wild nature, the land now echoed with footsteps, laughter, and the soft murmur of voices sharing tales by hearthlight. On Olympus, the gods watched this unfolding with a mixture of quiet pride and thoughtful distance. Zeus from his airy throne noted how smoke from countless human fires rose like gentle prayers into the sky. Hera observed the first promises exchanged in simple ceremonies under olive trees. Demeter smiled at fields coaxed into abundance by patient hands. Yet even in this early harmony, time, the great, unhurried river, began to reveal its deeper currents. The ages of humanity would come not as sudden shifts, but as slow color changes across a vast canvas. Golden light fading to silver sheen, then hardening into bronze resilience. The Golden Age arrived first, soft and luminous as honey poured at dawn. In this earliest era, humans lived as if cradled directly in the gods' gentle care. No plow scarred the earth. Fruits hung heavy on branches, ready to be gathered with a simple reach. Grain sprouted unbidden in meadows. Rivers offered fish that leapt into waiting hands, and springs bubbled with sweet water that never failed. Bodies knew no sickness, no ache of overwork. Age touched them lightly, leaving wisdom without frailty. Death came as peaceful sleep, souls drifting upward like autumn leaves on a warm breeze, welcomed into Hades' orderly realm without sorrow or struggle. Mortals walked with gods in easy companionship, sharing meals where ambrosia mingled with earthly fruits, listening to divine stories under eternal spring skies. Villages were small clusters of thatched homes, roofs alive with flowering vines, walls woven from living branches that whispered in the wind. Families gathered at central hearths, where Hestia's spirit burned bright, flames dancing without smoke or ash. Children played barefoot through fields that never browned, chasing butterflies whose wings shimmered like jewels. Elders sat in shaded groves, their voices carrying memories that felt as fresh as yesterday. For time flowed differently then, long, languid years blending into one golden afternoon. Poseidon sent gentle waves lapping at perfect shores. Demeter ensured every seed knew its season without fail, and Zeus' sky arched overhead in flawless blue. Clouds mere soft companions drifting without threat of storm. Yet even paradise held its subtle turning. As generations passed, though past feels too final for an age, where endings blended seamlessly into beginnings, humans grew accustomed to ease. Gratitude, once spontaneous as breath, began to soften into expectation. The gods, watching from Olympus, noted this gentle drift, voices calling less often in thanks, hands reaching without the pause of wonder. Zeus pondered the balance. Hera sensed promises growing lax. The earth, Gaia herself, felt the faint imbalance, like a garden too long untended, roots weakening from lack of true nurture. And so, with no anger but the quiet necessity of cycles, the Golden Age began to fade, not as a slammed door, but as sunlight yielding to silvered dusk. The Silver Age followed, cooler and more contemplative, like moonlight on still water. Humans remained taller, more graceful than later folk, their lives stretching centuries, yet marked by new textures from Pandora's jar. Seasons now asserted themselves. Gentle rains watered fields that required tending. Summers warmed but demanded shade. Winters brought soft snows that blanketed the land in hush. No longer did food appear unbidden. Hands learned the rhythm of sowing, weeding, harvest, work not burdensome, but rhythmic as breath, teaching patience through its steady cadence. Sickness touched lightly. Age came with silver hair and reflective eyes. Death lingered longer, allowing time for farewells by hearthside. Mortals built finer homes of polished wood and early stone, roofs thatched with silvered reeds that glowed under moonrise. They gathered in moonlit circles to honor Artemis with quiet songs. offered first fruits to Demeter at stone altars wreathed in night-blooming jasmine. Gods visited less frequently now, appearing in dreams or as gentle winds carrying divine whispers. Apollo taught the first flutes carved from river reeds, their melodies drifting through valleys like liquid silver. Hera blessed unions celebrated under lunar glow. Poseidon calmed waves for fishermen's simple boats. Yet hubris stirred faintly, some mortals forgetting the gods' gifts. Worship growing sporadic as silver comfort dulled golden awe. Children born in this age seemed less attuned to divine presence, their eyes turning more to earthbound wonders. The shift deepened gradually, silver yielding to the warmer, harder tones of the Bronze Age. Here humanity took on a sturdier form, shorter, broader, hearts forged in resilience. The earth demanded more, fields rocky and stubborn, requiring bronze tools hammered from ore in early forges. Wars emerged not as chaos, but as structured honor duels, bronze armor gleaming under sun as heroes tested metal in measured conflicts. Life shortened, passions intensified, toil heavier, loves fiercer, griefs deeper. Yet from this tempering came art. Bronze statues of gods erected in clearings, epic songs chanted around war fires, ships launched boldly onto Poseidon's broader seas. Mortals honored gods with grander sacrifices, altars smoking with offerings that reached Olympus more earnestly. Bronze Age folk dwelled in walled settlements atop hills, gates of hammered metal guarding communities, bound by blood oaths under Hera's watch. Warriors trained in sunlit dooryards, spears flashing like bronze lightning from Zeus's calmer storms. Women wove intricate tapestries depicting divine tales. Children learned bronze-working rhythms from forged sparks. Demeter blessed selective harvests won through sweat. Hestia warmed halls filled with song and strategy. Hades received souls hardened by life's forge, their bronze resolve easing underworld passage. Yet violence shadowed valor, bronze swords turning too readily to kin strife, hubris hardening into presumption against divine order. Through these ages, the gods remained constant watchers. Zeus noted humanity's arc, from effortless grace to earned strength, noting how Pandora's full jar balanced Prometheus's fire. Hera saw promises evolve from golden vows to bronze oaths tempered by trial. Demeter guided Earth's responses, generous in gold, measured in silver, challenging in bronze. Poseidon tested sea crossers with growing waves. Hestia warmed every hearth regardless of age's metal hue. Hades welcomed souls of varying polish, his realm accommodating golden ease, silver reflection, bronze endurance. On Olympus evenings, gods gathered by Hestia's flame, discussing mortal progressions like chapters in an endless tale, each age building toward heroic times when demigods would bridge divine and human realms. Mortals themselves felt these shifts as natural as seasons, though storytellers later framed them through Hesiod's ancient verse. Golden folk danced eternally in memory. Silver ones played haunting lyres under moon. Bronze warriors sang of valor won through forge fire trials. Each age left echoes, golden springs bubbling in sacred groves, silver flutes sounding in mountain passes, bronze spears displayed in temples as divine reminders. Humans learned gratitude anew with each turning. Golden thanks spontaneous, silver reflective, bronze hard won. The world ripened through these phases, clay of Prometheus gaining fire's knowledge, Pandora's gifts unfolding layer by textured layer. As nights deepened across evolving lands, hearths carried Hestia's light through golden memory, silver contemplation, bronze resolve. Gods on Olympus watched smoke rise from fields of all ages, knowing humanity's path led toward heroes who would walk Earth's richest chapters. The ages flowed onward, gentle gold to thoughtful silver to tempered bronze, like breaths deepening toward full awakening, each preparing mortals for tales of demigods' labors, voyages yet to unfold under watchful divine eyes and turning stars. The ages of humanity had rippled through golden ease, silver reflection, and bronze resilience, leaving the world richer with villages, songs, and hoof fires twinkling like earthly stars. On Olympus, the gods had watched these gentle turnings with patient eyes, their own lives unfolding in eternal rhythms above the mortal weave. Yet among them all, Zeus moved most freely through the world below, not always as Thunder King, but often as wanderer, his form shifting like clouds taking shape in wind. These wanderings were not mere escapades, but threads connecting divine sky to human earth, moments when God walked among clay-born folk, sharing quiet wisdom, sparking new lineages, and reminding mortals of the vast tapestry above their fields. His loves, told softly here, were not tempests of passion but gentle encounters, like summer rains nourishing dry soil. Zeus first wandered as a gentle bull to Europa, a Phoenician princess gathering flowers by the sea. She and her companions wove garlands under cypress shade, their laughter mingling with waves lapping softly at marble shores. Zeus, moved by her quiet grace, took the form of a magnificent white bull, calm-eyed, garlanded with wildflowers, his breath warm as meadow breeze. Europa, unafraid, approached this wondrous creature, stroking his soft muzzle, climbing upon his broad back to feel the sea wind in her hair. The bull waded into gentle surf, carrying her across the calm straight to Crete, where he revealed his true form. There, under olive groves heavy with fruit, their union blessed the island with royal lineage, Minos, Rhadamanthus, Sarpedon, kings whose wisdom echoed Zeus's watchful sky. Europa became queen, her wanderings seating Minoan halls, where bulls danced in sacred rites. Later, Zeus sought Io, a gentle priestess, tending Hera's altars in Argos. She moved through marble precincts with quiet devotion, her dark hair catching sunlight through column shadows. Zeus, drawn to her serene spirit, enveloped her in soft mist by the riverbank, their meeting hidden from watchful eyes. Hera, sensing the union, transformed Io into a gentle white heifer, soft-eyed, grazing peacefully in pastures. Zeus provided golden flowers for her comfort, but Hera sent a gadfly whose faint buzz drove Io wandering across lands, from Greece to Asia, her hooves tracing paths that would become trade routes and river names. Across deserts and swells, Io endured with patient grace, birthing Epiphus by the Nile's fertile bend. In time, Hera relented, restoring Io to human form, her wanderings seeding new peoples along Earth's gentle curves. Danae, locked in a bronze chamber by her fearful father Acrisius, received Zeus as golden rain, soft droplets filtering through roof cracks, pooling warm around her. From this tender shower came Perseus, destined for heroic paths. Zeus sheltered them until escaped by sea chest, drifting gently to Seripho's shores. Leda met swan-formed Zeus by Eurotas reeds, their embrace yielding Helen and the Dioscuri, beauties and twins whose fates wove Trojan strands. Alcmene welcomed Zeus as her husband Amphitryon, birthing Heracles amid flickering hearth light, his cries echoing strength yet to unfold. Each encounter rippled softly. Europa's kings ruled wisely. Io's line blessed Egypt. Perseus slew shadows. Heracles tamed wild earth. Zeus wandered also as eagle to Aegina, carrying her to Oenone, isle where their son Aeacus founded peaceful Salamis. As Satyr to Antiope, sparking Thebes' royal line amid Boeotian vineyards. As serpent to Persephone's mother Demeter in Eleusinian fields. Though some whisper this as dream-shared mystery, even Callisto, Artemis's companion, felt Zeus's starry touch, her bare form wandering Arcadian woods before constellation grace. Antiope of Thessaly bore twins Amphion and Zethus, builders of Thebes' seven-gated walls through lyre and stone. Semele glimpsed Zeus's full thunder glory, birthing Dionysus from sacred flame, wine's gentle god destined for mortal joys. These love-seeded hero blood across earth, Crete's labyrinth kings from Europa, Egypt's founders from Io, Mycenae's defenders from Perseus, Thebes' musicians from twins, Argos' strength from Heracles, Salamis' lawgivers from Aeacus. Mortals felt divine spark in their veins, whispering of ancestors touched by sky gods' wandering gaze. Hera watched with measured calm, knowing such unions wove fate's larger cloth, jealousy softened by wisdom of cosmic design. Villages honored these lines with altars where milk libations poured softly, tales told by firelight of god among men origins. Zeus's wanderings continued as golden shower for Danae in her brass tower, droplets forming cradle for infant Perseus amid flickering torchlight, as Antiura Medusa in honeyed cave, birthing myrmidons. Antfolk turned human, tireless builders. as flame-haired youth to mother of Tantalus, whose line tested divine patience. Even nymphs felt his touch, Pluto birthing Tantalus, whose hubris taught mortal limits, Cassiopeia becoming starry queen mother. Each form, bull, swan, shower, eagle, satyr, carried Zeus's airy essence to Earth's quiet corners, sparking bloodlines that flowered into heroes walking Bronze Age paths. Mortals sensed these divine touches in their hero's strength, wisdom surpassing kin, eyes holding sky depths. Villages traced genealogies to god-touched ancestors, erecting simple shrines where breezes stirred leaves like whispers from wandering Zeus. Hera blessed wedlock born of such lines. Demeter nourished their fields. Poseidon aided their sea voyages. On Olympus evenings, Zeus recounted wanderings by Hestia's hearth, siblings listening with knowing smiles. Hera's gaze steady, Athena pondering wisdom gained, Apollo strumming tales into lyre song. The world below bloomed fuller from these gentle unions. Human stories intertwining divine threads like ivy climbing marble. Through misty shores and mountain valleys, Zeus wandered endlessly, his loves planting seeds of greatness. Persephone's mother felt serpent comfort in sacred groves. Niobe's line from Tantalus learned hubris' quiet lesson. Mortal kings claimed bullfather Europa's blood. Egyptian pharaohs Io's Nile wander grace. Argive heroes Perseus' star-slaying gaze. Each encounter softened sky-earth divide, reminding clay-born folk of starry heritage. As twilight deepened across wandering paths, hearth tales carried these loves softly. Bull carrying princess over calm waves, heifer crossing patient deserts, golden rain filling brass chamber, lullabies weaving God and human in eternal, gentle embrace. The wanderings of Zeus had woven divine threads through mortal bloodlines, leaving the world dotted with children who carried sky strength in their veins. Kings with thoughtful gazes, queens with unyielding grace, wanderers whose steps seemed guided by unseen winds. Villages whispered of these god-touched lines around evening hearths, where Hestia's flames danced softly on faces turned toward tale-tellers. Bronze Age folk, sturdy from Earth's demands, felt a new stirring, not just survival through bronze tools and walled hills, but destiny calling like distant thunder over calm seas. From Zeus's gentle unions and mortal love sprang the first true heroes, not flawless statues, but living souls blending clay endurance with starry spark, their births marking Earth's transition from mere living to legendary paths. Heracles entered the world first among the greatest, born to Alcmene of Thebes under flickering torchlight in a simple chamber. Zeus, cloaked as her husband Amphitryon, had visited amid summer warmth, leaving strength coiled like sleeping serpent in her womb. When labor came, Hera, watchful over wedlock, delayed the birth with subtle weaves of fate, ensuring Theban Eurystheus would claim kingship first. Yet Heracles emerged mighty even as infant, his cries echoing like young lion through Theban halls. Two serpents sent by jealous Hera slithered from shadows that first night, but tiny hands grasped their writhing forms, squeezing life from threat before cradle's edge. Alcmene gazed in quiet awe, Amphitryon in proud wonder, as neighbors gathered murmuring of god-born might. Perseus, born of golden rain in Danae's brass tower, arrived amid shimmering droplets pooling on stone floor. Acrisius, fearful of oracles' word that grandson would slay him, had sealed mother and child in unyielding bronze. Yet Zeus's gift pierced the confines, warm cascade-forming babe who nursed at Danae's breast, while sunlight filtered through cracks. Fishermen found their sea chest drifting to Seriphos, where kindly Polyduses raised the boy amid rocky shores and gentle waves. Young Perseus honed sea eyes and steady hand, destined for Gorgon quests and heroic reflections in polished shield. Danae whispered nightly tales of golden father, instilling sky courage in her foundling son. Theseus came quieter to Aegeus of Athens and Aethra of Treason, conceived under moonlit rock where Zeus guided king left sword and sandals hidden. Aethra dreamed of sea god father too, blending Poseidon strength with earthly wisdom. Raised in Treason's groves, Theseus grew hearing tales of Athenian destiny, his steps firm as he claimed hidden tokens and journeyed north. Along rocky paths, he lifted sunken stones revealing bronze relics, lifted hearts with quiet valor. Sinis the pine bender fell gently. Sciron the bandit tamed by reason before sea's embrace. Athens welcomed its prince, Labyrinth calling softly in future mists. Jason's birth wove treachery and sea promise. Eson of Iolcos deposed by brother Peleus, who spared infant by false sacrifice. Chiron the centaur raised him in Pelion's gentle glens, teaching bow, lyre, healing herbs amid whispering pines. Argonaut call came when grown Jason claimed sandal lost in river, Peleus' oracle fulfilled. Golden Fleece quest stirred not just greed but lineage healing. Hera guiding from afar. His mother Alcimede mourned presumed death. Yet Jason lived wild strong, destined for Colchian strands and dragon-guarded wool. Bellerophon tamed Pegasus from Athena's dream spring, bridal woven of divine suggestion. Born to Glaucus of Corinth or Poseidon's sea, he sought glory slaying Chimera, lion-goat serpent breathing gentle fire across Lycia's valleys. Midusa-born heroes, like Perseus echoed grandfather's reflection shield wisdom. Even quieter births seeded legend. Meleager of Calydon's boar hunt. Atlanta fleet through Arcadian woods, offspring of Zeus-touched lines carrying subtle starry gifts. Heroes gathered not in grand armies, but chance meetings. Heracles wrestling Nemean lion in moonlit valley. Theseus navigating Crete's dancing youths. Perseus turning Atlas to stone with quiet gaze. Their births marked human apogee, bronze folk reaching starry heights through god-blood pulsing strong. Villages honored them with simple altars, milk for Heracles' strength, honey for Perseus' wit, olive wreaths for Theseus' justice. Hera watched lineage unfold. Demeter nourished heroic fields, Poseidon aided sea-crossed quests. On Olympus, Zeus nodded at Earth's noble children, Athena pondered their cunning, Apollo strung their deeds into eternal verse. Mothers like Alcmene raised sons amid hearth tales of golden sires, teaching balance of might and mercy. Challenges shaped them gently. Heracles cradled victory, teaching threats illusion. Perseus sea drift, building sea trust. Theseus road monsters, honing judgment before strength. Demigod births bridged sky-earth, reminding mortals of Pandora's full jar. Gifts carrying labors, lights amid shadows. As twilight fires kindled across hero cradles, legends whispered commencement, lion skins, gorgon heads, labyrinth threads awaiting patient hands. Hero births rippled through lands, Cadmus sowing dragon teeth in Theban furrows birthing Spartoi warriors, Amphitryon fostered Heracles wrestling childhood foes, Polydeuces raising twin Castor from death's grasp. Each dawn saw god blood stirring in cradle limbs, destined for labors tempering starry gifts into human gold. Villages felt divine proximity through these suns, strength lifting village burdens, wisdom settling disputes, courage guarding hearths from wild shadows. Gods watched lineage bloom like olive branches, Hera blessing wedlock-spawned valor, Hestia warming halls where heroes rested weary limbs. As night deepened over hero cradles, hearths carried first whispers of labors to come, gentle preludes to paths where god blood met earth's trials, forging mortals into immortals through patient, starry deeds. Heracles, born of Zeus' starry seed and Alcmene's mortal warmth, grew from cradle conqueror of serpents into a figure whose shadow alone steadied trembling villages. Thebes raised him amid olive groves and simple hearths, where his strength lifted fallen beams and his laughter echoed like distant thunder over calm fields. Yet Hera's watchful gaze, ever measuring divine mortal bounds, wove madness threads into his mind one fateful night, sending him against his own kin in sorrowful haze. Awakening to tragedy by bloodied hearth, Heracles sought purification at Delphi's quiet oracle, where Pythia's gentle whispers named his path. 12 labors for King Eurystheus of Tiryns, each a patient tempering of god blood through earth's stern lessons. Thus began his wandering paths, not as rage-fueled rampage, but steady journeys through shadowed valleys and sunlit slopes, each task unfolding like chapters in a hearth tale told to drifting sleepers. The first path led to Nemea's whispering woods, where the lion prowled, its golden hide unpiercing by bronze or iron, claws carving earth like plowshares. Heracles tracked softly through dew-kissed ferns, moon filtering through ancient oaks as beasts' amber eyes gleamed from thicket dark. No arrow found mark, no blade-pierced pelt. Instead, Mighty arms encircled the creature in patient embrace, wrestling through starlit hours until life ebbed gently from throttled throat. The impervious skin became cloak and armor, paws as sandals, first labor yielding not just trophy, but understanding that some trials demand closeness, not distance. Eurystheus paled from hidden jar, sending next summons amid trembling scrolls. Lernaean Hydra rose second from marshy depths near Argos, 9 heads swaying like willows in wind, immortal center guarded by serpentine kin, with nephew Iolaus aiding quietly. Heracles waded ankle-deep in reflective pools, club-crushing heads as they sprouted anew, cauterizing necks with flaming torch to stem regeneration. Poisoned breath misted harmlessly past steady gaze, central head severed, buried beneath sacred stone where earth held it sleeping. Crab sent by Hera crushed gently under heel, its shell trophy for Hera's distant altars. Labor taught multiplication of trials, need for thoughtful aid. Heads fell not alone, but through shared flame and buried root. Ceryneian hind, sacred to Artemis, bounded third through Arcadia's silver streams. Golden-antlered deer swift as dawnlight. Heracles pursued not with hunter's haste, but patient tracking over hills and glens, learning her paths through whispered winds. Captured gently at Eurota's bend after year-long companionship, hind carried softly to Mycenae on broad shoulders, unharmed for Artemis's grace. Eurystheus cowered deeper in jars, labors growing distant as mountains. Erymanthian boar rampaged forth through wintry slopes, tusks carving snowdrifts like plow blades. Heracles tracked through Pholos' centaur glens, sharing wine with gentle Chiron before cornering beast in drifts. Roars muffled by powder, boar subdued through patient encirclement, bound in nets woven from willow eyes, carried alive to Tyrrhens through thawing valleys. Labor whispered earth's wild fury yields to steady circle, not spear thrust. Stymphalian birds darken fifth lake near Arcadia, man-eating flock with brazen beaks and iron wings. Athena gifted rattle of bronze, clappers shaking flocks skyward in panic clouds. Arrows found wings, rattle stunned stragglers. Survivors fled to islands distant, lake restored to lily peace. Eurystheus' fear deepened, labors veering mythical. Crete's savage bull thundered sixth across sands, Poseidon sent fury breathing sea flame. Heracles sailed gently, wrestled horns to hands through dust devils, subdued without wound for submission to Tyrrhen's pens. Minos's lineage felt tremor, bull wandering Europe after his Marathonian peacekeeper. Seventh path saw Diomedes, man-eating Mars of Thrace, stable steaming with wild breath. Heracles felled room softly, fed flesh to Mara's calming frenzy, led fire-tamed herd to Tyrrhen's through starlit plains. Eighth turned to distant west for Geriant's red cattle, crossing sunless paths with patient oar-strokes, slaying 3-bodied giant gently, herding lowing kin home through Libyan sands. Ninth climbed Hyperborean chill for Hesperides' golden apples, tricking laden serpent with Nereid aid, apples gleaming like captured stars in return satchel. 10th plunged to Hades' shadowed halls for 3-headed Cerberus, hound of brass-tipped tail and writhing snakes. Hermes guided, Athena steadied. Heracles wrestled guardian gently from underworld gates, muzzled without harm, led snarling through Eleusis fields back to living light. Eurystheus fled jars forever, labors complete yet soul deepened. Heracles' paths taught Cosmos quiet truths. Strength encircles wildness, patience outpaces pursuit, 8 tempers solitary might. Lion skin cloaked redemption, club bore earth's weight, arrows found hidden flocks. Villages along paths whispered labors as hearth lullabies. Nemea's pelt, Hydra's stumps, hind's antlers icons in simple shrines. Hera's opposition softened to distant watch. Zeus nodded from clouds at sun's patient forge. Post-labors, Heracles wandered teaching, wedding, fathering. Prometheus freed from crags. Oechalia won gently. Pyre on Ida yielding starry ascent. His 12 paths marked hero apotheosis. God blood refined through earth's slow crucibles. Legend drifting eternally on hearth smoke whispers. As labor's echoes faded into starry peace, hearths carried Heracles' paths softly. Gentle preludes to further heroes, threading mythic earth. Perseus' mirrored paths had etched reflection wisdom into Argive hearths. his starry shield gleaming nightly beside Andromeda's gentle chains, while Heracles' lion-skin trails lingered in Nemean whispers. Yet another hero walked earthbound steps, feet tracing familiar Greek soil rather than winged skies. Theseus, born of Aegeus' hidden sword and Aethirus' moonlit dream by Treason's sacred rock. Poseidon stirred sea strength in his veins too, blending Athenian kingship with ocean's steady pulse. Raised amid Treason's olive groves and quiet shrines, young Theseus heard tales of distant Athens, labyrinths waiting, monsters tamed, justice calling like morning tide. When manhood came, he claimed father's tokens from wave-worn stone, sandals gripping dusty roads northward through Peloponnesian valleys, each step measured, purposeful, heart tuned to Earth's quiet rhythms rather than starry flights. The journey began softly through Epidaurus' healing groves, where twisted Sciron awaited on cliff paths, hurling travelers to turtle waters below. Theseus met him not with hasty sword, but calm words first, banded boasting of bones crunching in shell jaws. Hero listened patiently, then lifted Sciron skyward by ankles, turtle claiming boastful feeder as seafoam tribute. Megaris fields held Cenes the pine bender next, stretching victims between bent trees till sinews snapped. Theseus bent pines himself, patient strength mirroring bandits' cruelty, then loosed them on Cenes' mid-boast, trees whispering release as body vanished into earth. Cromien sow-rooted nearby, massive tusked terror of fields. Theseus felled her gently with club, meat-feeding villagers long starved of peace. Cromien sow-felled, Theseus pressed through isthmus mists to Periphetes the clubman, son of Hephaestus wielding iron-bound oak. Hero wrestled patiently near sacred shrine, turning smith strength against him, club claimed as walking aid for wanderers. Then Circean of Eleusis challenged wrestling grips by Demeter's gates. Theseus learned hold swiftly, pinning earth god's son till breath yielded to mercy. Procrustes the bedfitter stretched or chopped guests to fit iron frame. Theseus fitted him perfectly upon it, bandit vanishing into his own cruel measure. Each road monster tamed taut layered justice. Words before blows, mirror strength before victory, mercy woven through meted ends. Athens drew nearer, Megarian walls gleaming like promise. Athens welcomed prince amid olive-crowned Acropolis, Aegeus recognizing sword token at banquet table. Yet Medea, exiled witch queen, schemed poison cup for throne threat. Athena whispered warning, cup spilled harmlessly revealing sun. Theseus ruled wisely at first, ordering city into demes and tribes, honoring gods with measured festivals, Panathenea processions winding softly through sacred ways. Yet Cretan tribute darkened horizon. Every 9 years, 14 youths and maidens sailed to Minos's labyrinth for Minotaur devouring. Theseus volunteered first, black sail ship gliding from Piraeus under tearful gazes, Ariadne's fate waiting in Knossos palaces. Crete's rose-red palaces rose from sea mists, Minoan dancers circling bull leapers in courtyard rites. Minos tested lineage sternly, demanding Theseus prove Poseidon father by diving for sea signet. Nereids guided ring recovery through coral depths, surfacing triumphant. Ariadne, princess heart stirred by hero's calm gaze, met him moonlit in palace gardens, threadspool secret for labyrinth return. Daedalus, labyrinth architect, nodded subtle approval, thread gleaming silver like moonpath. Dawn found Theseus entering stone maze, thread trailing behind like whispered guide. Minotaur's half-man roar echoing softly from shadows. Labyrinth coiled dreamlike, walls whispering Daedalus's genius, turns patient as tide. Minotaur charged not blind rage but earth hunger. Theseus sidestepped calmly, club finding temple gently, beast yielding without prolonged agony. Ariadne waited tear-still at entrance, thread reclaiming hero from stone dreams. Escape sailed white sails homeward, Athens awaiting joy, but white forgotten amid embrace. Aegeus spying black from Saunian cliffs, leaping sorrowfully to see embrace below. Theseus docked amid morning turned kingship, renaming waters Aegean in father's honor. Kingship deepened Theseus's paths. Amazon raid yielding queenly Hippolyta's girdle peacefully traded. Centaur marriage Pirithous, binding friendship eternal. Underworld descent for Persephone unyielding to Hades' watch. Caledonian boar hunt joined him with Atlanta fleet-footed. Meleager's spear claiming tusk amid Arcadian snows. Yet hubris shadowed later. Helen's youthful abduction from Sparta. Palantide's rebellion crushed justly. Amazon Queen Antiope's tragic arrow amid Theban strife. Exile found him at Cyrus Cliffs. Lycomedes' treachery yielding seafall. Bones later honored Athenian hero cult. Theseus' paths wove justice's full thread. Road monsters mirrored, labyrinth navigated. Kingship balanced mercy strength. Athens traced democracy's roots to his tribes. Poseidon honored Seafather through Salamis' triumphs. Athena blessed wisdom measures. Hera watched wedlock lines without grudge. Demeter nourished fields tilled by labyrinth-free hands. Villages lit hero fires whispering his roads. Siren Cliff justice, Cromien peace, Knossos thread guidance. Olympus hearth gatherings echoed his steps. Hermes recounting Greatrix' kinship. Athena pondering mazewit. Heroes' later shadows taught fuller truths. Friendship's bonds, Pirithous eternal. Love's complexities, Phaedra's tragic weave. Power's temptations, Helen youth. Yet core shone constant, patient justice encircling chaos, like Ariadne's thread. Strength measured by mercy span. Posthumous bones fetched from Cyrus-seated Athenian unity. Theseus patron of democracy's measured voices. Hestia warmed his cult hearths. Poseidon stirred Isthmus waves' homage. Zeus nodded at Earth-Sun's balanced reign. As labyrinth echoes unwound into democratic roots, hearths carried Theseus whispers long, gentle preludes to Argonaut waves and Trojan destinies, threading mythic seas. Theseus's measured paths had woven justice through labyrinth turns and road monster shadows, his Athenian tribes enduring like olive roots deep in Attic soil, while Perseus's mirrored gaze and Heracles' lion cloak lingered in starry and pelted legends. Yet another hero called from Iolcos' windswept shores, Jason, born of Eson amid treachery's cradle, raised wild-strong by Centaur Chiron in Pelion's whispering glens. Uncle Peleus usurped throne through false infant sacrifice, but Alcimedes' son lived free amid pines and mountain streams, learning lyre's melody, bough's whisper, herb's healing touch. Oracles stirred Peleus' fear. One sandal lost in river would herald throne claimer. Jason, grown golden-haired with sea-calm eyes, waded a Noros stream retrieving lost soul, confronting Uncle barefoot bold, demanding fleece right. Hera, nursing ancient grudge against Peleus, whispered quest guidance. Golden rams will shimmering in Colchian promise. Argonaut call rippled softly through Greece. Heracles hefting oars, Orpheus strumming Lyresuve. Atlanta fleet is Arcadian deer, Castor Pollux twin unbreakable, Peleus steady father of Achilles to be. Argo built in Naupactus shade, pine planks whispering sea secrets under Athena's eye. Figurehead carved prophetic from Dodona oak. Dawn launched from Pegasae, waves lapping hull like gentle welcome. Jason at prow helm gripped, Hera's dove guiding through mist islands. Hylas vanished to nymph waters. Heracles searching heartsore before rejoining paths later. First nightfall brought clashing rocks. Icy Symplegades grinding ships to splinters. Phineus's harpy-tormented wisdom revealed. Dove through gap first, then row relentless as rocks rebounded slow. Argo slipped unscathed, rock sealing forever behind prophetic bird trail. Mariandena's shores welcomed with gentle funeral games for Phrixuskin. Then Bebryce's boxing I'll where Polydeuces fell giant Amycus honorably. Fists patient, victory merciful. Phineus next, blind seer starved by harpy snatchings. Borad's winged sons chased shrieking winds east. Zetzcale trapping filth birds midair. Grateful oracle mapped full course. Bithynian straits, Mysian nymph losses. Amazon fringes, Thermodon shallows. Argo threaded danger softly. Storm wind soothed by Orpheus's lyre. Typhus helm true through narrows. Argus carpenter mending hull whispers. Calchas drew near, Phasis river golden under Caucasus shadow. Aetes palace gleaming dragon guarded. Colchian welcome massed trials. Jason petitioned fleece peacefully. Aetes demanding impossible. Fire-breathing bulls yoked. Dragon teeth sown earth-sprouting warriors. Sleepless serpent slain. Medea, which princess heart stirred by Aphrodite's arrow. Met Jason moonlit by palace tamarisks. Unguents gifted for trials. Fire charm for bulls. Sedative potion for dragon. Wisdom for Spartoi. Dawn Arena saw Jason yoke brazen oxen patiently. Breathfire glancing harmless off charmed skin. Plow turning black furrow deep. Dragon teeth scattered yielded armored earthborn. Hero springing spear ready. Jason sowed stone seed mimicking. Spartoid turning kinslaughter till soul survivor fled. Serpent drowsed by Medea's herbs. Blade finding heart gently through slumber scales. Fleece claimed shimmering. Ram wool soft as cloud golden arms. Escape swift yet treacherous. Aedes pursuing dragon-proud ships. Talos bronze giant hurling boulders seaward. Medea charmed pursuit through fog mist. Argo threading siren straits, where Orpheus drowned lures with lyre superior melody. Silicurbdus navigated helm true by Phineus maps. Symplegades returned sealed safe. Libyan shallows stranding Argo till Triton god gifted earth passage to Lake Tritonis calm. Heroes carried ship tenderly over dunes. Jason honoring ram fleece at altar of Libyan Zeus. Homecoming darkened by Iolco's shadows. Peleus scorning fleeceproof. Medea rejuvenating aged ram demonstration to silence doubters. Sister slaying uncle through false blood rite. Jason exiled sorrowfully. Peleus's Iolcos yielding to Acastus rule. Corinth Haven followed. Creon's daughter Glossy promised Jason. Medea's jealousy weaving tragic robe gift. Yet hero's heart turned steady to kingdom building. Argo moored eternal shrine at Pegasi. Sun's murmurous fears carried Seacom. Thessalian kings, tracing Ramwool lineage. Villages honored Argonauts with sea shrines. Orpheus lyres and Thracian vallas. Boread wings Thrace winds. Atlanta arrows Caledon echoes. Hera's guidance whispered in every safe passage. Athena blessed shipcraft eternal. Poseidon calmed every tested wave. Olympus hearth tales echoed voyages. Hermes recounting rock dove. Apollo strumming Phineus gratitude. Jason paths taught seas patient truths. Crew binds solitary helm. Music outsings peril songs. Wisdom navigates rock gaps. No lone labors like Heracles. Mirrored quests like Perseus. Justice roads like Theseus. But shared oar strokes through collective trials. Iolco's hearths whispered Argo tales. Symplegades sealing. Harpy flight. Colchian furrow victory. Thessalian kings traced Ramblood. Corinth honored Medea wisdom bittersweet. Gods gathered by Hestia's flame. Hera recounting grudge to guidance arc. Athena pondering Daedalus shipwright kinship. Later shadows tempered glory. Glossy tragedy. Sun's lost exile. Argo crushing fall beneath rotten prow. Yet heroic core endured. Fleece quest healing lineage wounds. Crew forged bonds eternal. Posthumous Argo enshrined Isthmus. Jason guardian spirit of voyages. Hestia warmed sailor hearths. Poseidon stirred Ramwool sea's homage. Zeus nodded at sea sun's collective triumph. Argonaut waves rippled legends wide. Phrixus ram golden memory. Hylas nymph eternal spring song. Talos cracking heel Achilles echo. Villages felt hero presence in every launched hull. Measured oar, star-navigated night. Hera blessed quest wedlocks. Demeter nourished isle fields. Hades welcomed crew souls, sea-weary peaceful. Jason's Argo had carved sea paths through Symplegades gaps and Colchian fleece trials. Its oar echoes lingering in Pegasi shrines and Isthmus winds. While Theseus's labyrinth thread and Perseus's mirror gaze wove justice and reflection into Attic hearths. Yet as Bronze Age hardened into heroic destinies, a new age dawned across Aegean horizons, not with sudden clash, but slow gathering of fates like clouds massing over Ilium's fertile plain. Troy rose golden from Scamander's gentle bends. Walls Laomedon's hubris built by Apollo Poseidon compelled labor. Towers gleaming like captured sunlight amid Dardanian olives and vine-terraced hills. Priam ruled wisely from palace hearths. Hecuba bore 50 children like olive branches heavy with fruit. Hector led Trojan horse tamers with quiet honor. Paris shepherded flocks on Ida's slopes unaware of apple judgment waiting. This Trojan age began softly. Trade ships gliding from Phrygian ports. Helen's Spartan beauty stirring distant whispers. Gods weaving mortal threads toward walled reckonings patient as tide. Troy's foundations whispered older tales. Dardanus fleeing Samothrace, storms to found Zelia. Tros naming realm for golden gift of Ganymede. You've lifted eagle-born to pour nectar on Olympus heights. Zeus's cupbearer eternal under starry constellation. Elos sighted city by Palladian meteor fall. Laomedon cheated wall-building gods. Apollo's plague softening hubris to Heracles' sea monster siege yielding city peace. Priam's reign bloomed prosperous, herds lowing in Ida pastures, Scamander weaving silver through poppy fields, Samoi's murmuring prophecy soft, merchant galleys laden with Lydian gold, Thracian horses, amber from Hyperborean strands. Hecuba dreamed fire-tongued son Paris, exposed Ida wards, yet wolf-nursed like Romulus legend, rescued by herdsmen to shepherd strong youth. Cassandra Pythia gifted foresaw, all yet curse unbelieved. Helena's twin brother oracle come, Deiphobus sword ready, Troilus colt-like promise cut short by Achilles' shadow. Paris's judgment stirred first ripples, golden apple fairest tossed Eris wedding amid Thetis Peleus nuptials, Hera's cities, Athena's war wisdom, Aphrodite's beauty love promise chooser. Youth chosen on Gargarus peak, apple igniting divine rivalries patient as embers. Spartan Helen, fairest of Letiswan children, wed Menelaus red-haired steadfast, Tyndareus oath-bound suitors, by Odysseus' wit to honor chosen. Yet Aphrodite thread drew Paris embassy bound to Hellas, hospitality masking heartstir. Menelaus hosted Trojan prince in Lacedaemon halls, Agamemnon Mycenae's shadow watching, Odysseus Ithaca weary hosting. Helen's gaze met Paris seacom, love spark kindling softly like hearth rewarmed, voyage homeward carrying Spartan queen to Troy's rose-red embrace. Menelaus raged hearthside, oath circle summoning Greece's bronze-clad kings. Agamemnon mustering Argives from golden Mycenae. Odysseus reluctant Ithaca plow feigning madness, till babe Telemachus revealed truth. Ajax Salaminian strength, Idomeneus Cretan spears, Protesilaus Phylician first blood. Nestor Pylos wise counseling, Diomedes Aetolian storm, Philoctetes Heracles bow air. Achilles Thia nursed seen him son, hidden by mother Thetis, Lycomede's isle girlish disguise. Aulus wind stalled by Artemis' wrath, Agamemnon Iphigenia sacrificed wind release. Thousand ships gliding Euboea straits, toward Tenedo's spy isles. Protesilaus first spear claiming Laomedon soil, before Hector's shaft fell. Achilles Myrmidon stormed first beach, Patroclus spear brother, Phoenix old tutor, Automedon chariot swift. Trojan line held firm, Hector Aeneas linked, Sarpedon Lyciade, Glaucus spear friend, Pandarus Phrygian arrow. Walls witnessed first parleys, Menelaus Hector single combat truce broken by Pandarus shaft, Agamemnon catalog muster testing Argive hearts, Odysseus Trojan spy threads, Dolan night scout captured cunning. Gods intervened softly, Hera sleep charming Scamander sentries, Athena Diomedes' eye granting star gods glimpse, Apollo Hector chariot, Poseidon Achaean trench walls, Nestor chariot wounded kings, Machaean healing hand, Eurypylus welcome hearth. Achilles sulk shipside Thetis wept, Briseis captive grief, Patroclus urging lion skin Heracles skin, Thersites common voice mocking Agamemnon hubris, Odysseus staff gentled assembly restore, Amazon Penthesilia later aid, Memnon Ethiopian dawn godson, Sarpedon Zeus child fatal Zeus wept, Troy's women wove through siege soft shadows, Andromache Hector toddler Astyanax balcony gazing, Hecuba Cassandra restraining, Helen weblooms weaving war tides, Pollux and a Memnon bride promise, Cassandra worn tower high unheeded, Laetci Athena priestess, Creusa Aeneas home heart, Achaean women captive graced, Chrysis Agamemnon ransom, Briseis Achilles tender, Odysseus night palaverings, Dolan tongue loosed scout paths, Rhesus Thracian horses dawn stolen, Beach pyres smoked hero dead, Patroclus funeral game strength testing, Hippias box-lid trick foreshadowing, siege deep and patient, 9 years beach life rhythms, Achaean wall trenches supply line tested, Trojan Ida forges raided, Achilles Phoenix embassy rebuffed pride stung, Patroclus Heracles lion armor borrowing, Sarpedon fatal atop Patroclus Hector slaying, Thetis new armor Hephaestus forged Star River born, Achilles Hector duel dust choked chariot drag, Priam starlet ransom tender corpse wash, Penthesilia Amazon queen Achilles fell, Memnon dawn shield Achaean grief, Eurypylus Glaucuscan aid, Odysseus Philoctetes Heracles bow summoning, Neoptolemus Pyrrhus Achilles' son, Trojan horse Hippias craft Polymedes treason shadow, Athena Eris apple fates converged walls, Helenus captured oracle yielding horse need, Calchas seer Laocoon serpent warning, Sinon beach wept tail, Horus filled emptied Troy celebrated false victory. Cassandra clutched Palladian unheeded. Deiphobus, wedding night sword fell. Achaeans poured forth slaughter softened by hearth memories. Hector tomb honored. Astyanax cliff tender fall. Polyxena, Achilles' tomb bride. Aeneas and Chryses father fire carry. Helenus Cassandra Orestes faded. Antenor Venetian refuge. Dawn smoke rose Pergamum. Gods withdrew strife weary. Hera Aphrodite truce bitter. Trojan age rippled survivor strands. Aeneas Lavinium found wandering. Odysseus Ithaca longing. Nestor Pylos sage. Menelaus Helen reconciled Egypt wins. Villages traced heroes. Ajax Locri colonizers. Diomedes Aetolian vine kings. Idomeneus Cretan law. Hera watched oath fruits bittersweet. Athena pondered war wisdom costs. Poseidon stirred survivor seas homage. Olympus hearth echoed walls. Hermes recounting Dolan cunning. Apollo Hector lament soft. As walled echoes merged into Wanderhome. Hearths carried Trojan whispers long. Gentle preludes to final divine twilights, threading mythic fades. Troy's survivor paths had woven final heroic threads across wine-dark seas and Latin furrows. Aeneas plowing Lavinium promise. Odysseus reclaiming Ithaca hearth through patient bow. Agamemnon's tragic Mycenae purple. Nestor's pilous wisdom enduring like ancient olive. Yet as heroic ages softened into memory mists, the gods themselves entered gentle twilight. Not sudden cataclysm, but slow fading like hearth embers yielding to dawn's first light. Olympus halls, once echoing feast laughter and lyre demotos, grew quieter. Marble columns caught longer shadows as divine presences thinned like mist over Scamander's silver bends. Zeus watched from airy throne, Thunderbolt resting silent beside eagle perch, his sky eyes tracing mortal progress from clay Prometheus to plowman Aeneas. Hera measured wedlock lines matured through Helen's trials and Penelope's loom patience. Demeter felt fields ripening under human hands, Hestia's central flame burning steady, yet smaller, warming fewer divine gatherings. Poseidon stirred waves less tempestuously. Hades' underworld ordered souls from golden ease to heroic resolve. The age of living myths yielded softly to mortal stories, temples rising where heroes walked, gods becoming whispers in wind and starlight. Marble sanctuaries dotted once heroic landscapes. Delphi Pythia Vale vapors fading. Delos Apollo shrine windswept quiet. Eleusis Demeter mysteries last initiates. Dodona oak leaves rustling Zeus queries faint. Oracles grew cryptic as divine voices withdrew. Cassandra echoes unheeded turned legend. Tiresias shades underworld murmurs. Temples filled with bronze tripods, ivory statues, golden files from Troy gold and Argonaut fleeces. Priests chanting Homeric hexameters, where gods once walked. Mortals traced genealogies to Zeus-touched lines. Heracles Oedipus ascended starry. Perseus Mycenae shields reflected. Theseus Athenian tribes democratic. Jason Pegasi Argo eternal. Yet divine intervention softened. Athena owl-wise, not spear-direct. Apollo lyre song through mortal bards. Hermes trickster paths merchant routes. Hera blessed fading oaths. Aphrodite loves hearthbound. Ares war shadows philosophy shadowed. Olympus itself transformed gradually. Feast halls echoing emptily. Nectar cups dust gathering. Ambrosia jars sealed eternal. Gods wandered less frequently among mortals, appearing dream-veiled or statue-still. Zeus cloud formed over Dodona. Poseidon wave whisper on Saunian. Demeter golden ear fields. Hestia flames shrank hearth center. Yet mortals kindled hearth fires, carrying her essence. Simple homes Delphi shrined. Eleusis mysteries domestic. Athena Parthenon wisdom statue. Apollo Delphic tripod music. Artemis Boron bear cult gentle. Dionysus vine wild turned wine cult quiet. Hermes crossroads cairns. Hephaestus forge echoes artisan shops. Hera Heraean Samian solemn. Hades Eleusis under shadow honored fearlessly. Temples became museums of divine presence. Troy Palladian Athens safe. Argonaut prow isthmus moored. Heracles lion-skin Tegia draped. Mortal myths evolved hearth tales to philosophies. Homer blind bard weaving Iliad Odyssey eternal. Hesiod works days golden silver ages moralized. Pindar odes heroic praise measured. Temples hosted games where Heracles' strength tested Theseus' justice. Jason C. met Perseus' reflection. Oracles yielded to reason's gentle rise. Aristotle Lyceum walks pondering unmoved mover Zeus echo. Plato Academy shadows divine forms. Gods reseated star patterns. Heracles knees sky high. Perseus Andromeda Pegasus clustered. Orion hunter eternal. Pleiades Zeus daughters veiled. Constellations mapped heroic maps mortals navigated by. Divine watchfulness night canopy eternal. Divine human bonds transformed mystery cult to civic rite. Eleusis Demeter Persephone initiates last visions. Samothrace Cabri sea safe harbors. Orphic Dionysus rebirth golds. Heroes deified gentle. Heracles throne beckoned. Asclepius healing snake staffed. Castor Pollux Dioscuri star guards. Gods honored through paean hymns, libation pours. Sacrifice smoke rising thin as prayer veils. Villages lit hero fires where labyrinth threads, fleece quests, lion skins whispered. Theseus democracy patron, Jason sailor guard, Perseus reflection shield wisdom. Hera watched civic wedlocks, Athena agora justice, Poseidon trireme sea homage. Olympus echoes faded feast music to mortal bard song. Gods content star watchers over clay progress. Twilight deepened Olympian mists. Zeus thunder rarefied to philosophy storms. Poseidon earthquakes civic walls tested. Demeter famines harvest lessons. Hades souls fairy silent. Persephone spring return domestic. Aphrodite loves reasoned. Ares war strategized. Artemis hunts nature guarded. Hestia universal hearth beating in every home fire. Temples, hearts. Gods became archetypes eternal. Zeus father order. Hera marriage bond. Athena wisdom craft. Apollo light prophecy. Artemis moon wild. Ares courage fury. Aphrodite beauty love. Hermes wit travel. Hephaestus forge art. Demeter nurture cycle. Hestia home center. Poseidon sea depth. Hades end order. Mortals carried divine sparks Prometheus gifted. Pandora jar textured. Heroic bloodlines starry. Temples endured as divine memory palaces. Parthenon Athena ivory gold serene. Zeus Olympia thunder seated. Hera Argos bridal veiled. Delphi tripod prophetic. Mysteries whispered initiates. Eleusis grain rebirth. Samothrace sea safe. Orphic golden tablets Hades pass. Philosophers walk groves pondering divine essences. Stoics Zeus logos. Epicureans God serenity. Platonists forms eternal. Heroes cult honored. Theseus the Zion democratic. Heracles Heraclea strength games. Asclepius healing waters. Gods reseated yet permeated. Hearth Hestia heart. Field Demeter bless. Sea Poseidon prayer. Agora Athena wit. Bedroom Hera vow. Crossroads Hermes cairn. Final Olympian gatherings hearthsoft. Zeus recounting chaos Gaia births. Hera wedlock arcs. Athena Prometheus wit kinship. Apollo Homer hymns. Hermes Argo dove guidance. Gods nodded mortal progress. Clay to plow. Fleece quest to trireme. Labyrinth justice to agora vote. Twilight complete. Divine presences star diffused. Temple statued. Archetype hearted. Mortals carried myths hearth lullabies. Golden apples, labyrinth threads, lion skins, mirrored shields, Argo oars, horse walls eternal. Twilight gods became eternal whispers. Zeus sky vast, Hera bond steady. Every hearth Hestia warmth. Temples memory keepers, stars heroic maps, hearts divine archetypes. Myths hearth carried through ages. Chaos lullabies, Titan turnings, Olympian homes, heroic paths, Trojan waves immortal. And so myths fade softly into starlit peace. Temples quiet, hearths warm eternal. Gods whispers in wind and wave. Drift now with chaos cradle. Titan turns, Olympian homes. Heroic paths walk gentle. Sleep comes like earth's patient sigh. Dreams weaving divine mortal eternal good night.